Fundamentally, when it comes down to all of the drivers out on the field tonight, they might be racing, but the person that's going to be on pole position, or the people that are going to be on for pole position, is the Macmillan Kansas support. The next 24 hours here at the Competitive Speed Series is going to prove to be a more competitive environment, but all in all, it's all for a good cause. It's myself, James Otter, alongside Rio Harris here for our first race of the next 24 hours at the Belgium Grand Prix. We're at you live at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Thank you very much for being alongside us. To this one, Rio, we're in for an absolute blinder of a race weekend ahead of us. Of course, Spa usually brings all of the frantic racing, but all of these drivers have got to prepare for more than just Spa. A full 24 hours in Formula One racing. It's an intense one.
Brings the action, and we don't have a qualifying to kick off. It's a completely random grid, so we have no idea who could be starting on pole. It could be Heather on pole, it could be Joker on pole, it could be Momo on pole, it could be Harmon on pole. We will have no idea until we load into the session. Like you said, it's not a sprint, it's a complete marathon today. 20 races across the next 24 hours. They have to prepare themselves mentally, because if you are one of the drivers which are doing the night stints and you've got a couple races in the night, you have to make sure you've got the energy to do it, because if you're a bit tired during the races, obviously it will cost you a lot of lap time, considering the fact that obviously you need just the mental strength as well as long as the physical strength to be able to be competitive.
Yeah, that's a critical one though, isn't it? Because of course all of these people are all doing it for a good cause. If you scan that QR code up there in the top left hand side, or top right hand side, I'll get my left and rights eventually right. At the top right hand side, you'll be able to give up some of your hard earned cash to give the Macmillan Cancer support, in the hope that we of course will be hitting our goal of £2,000 off of the back of this one. But in between all of that, we do have a few little goals that we'll go into no doubt throughout the next 24 hours. These drivers though are all thinking about the next few hours ahead of them. Starting off in Belgium, of course, we then take a trip over to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix for Imola, and then after that we're at Mexico, Singapore, Australia, Austria, Abu Dhabi, Hungary and Saudi Arabia. A real mixed bag of Saturday races here this afternoon and this evening. I think the ones highlighting for me, Rio, Belgium obviously has its own individual characteristics which bring its own intensity. Mexico I absolutely adore. Australia should be a pretty good one, as well as Austria.
Exactly. Obviously, Belgium is the optimal one, which is arguably out of the lot we've got them. You could also chuck Mexico into the mix with the longest main straight. The one I'm looking forward to is, I'm going to be a bit biased here because I'm racing in it, Singapore. I'm looking very excited to, because I'm racing in it. But obviously, like you mentioned, the likes of Australia, Belgium, Mexico, and I mean Australia and Austria as well, two tracks that sometimes do go under the radar. I do think Abu Dhabi as well could be quite the very entertaining race, because you have the DRS straight between turn 5 and 6, and on the run down towards turn 9, many overtaking chances there. But one thing is for certain, there will be plenty of action throughout the course of this 24 hours, and not even just the first 24 hours, the first 10 hours. We've got many exciting tracks to come up with.
Yeah, we certainly do as well. And of course, that leads into Sunday, where we then take a very brief break as all the drivers get themselves ready for the Netherlands Dutch Grand Prix at 10 past midnight. United States Grand Prix in the Circuit to the Americas, 20 past 1 for that one. Monaco, that should be a bit of a mental one. We are thinking that's going to be a full wet race, isn't it? At night time at 2:30. At 20 to 4, we then take a trip over back to the United States for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Japanese Grand Prix is fielding at 10 to 5. Azerbaijan at 6 o'clock, Qatar at 10 past 7, Brazil at 20 past 8. We then take a trip to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia at 9:30. At 20 to 11, we take a trip to the Temple of Speed at Monza, and then we wrap it up where else but at Silverstone, the Great British Grand Prix at 10 to 12. So that is what we have got coming up ahead of us. One thing is for certain though, Rio, we should be in for a very interesting Belgium Grand Prix, a place to start off at. No else than the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps brings its own individual flavours. From a racing perspective, what are the expectations going into this one?
Obviously, with racing is your first expectation is to race cleanly as a whole, but then obviously there's so much overtaking spots. You could also go for a dive at turn 1, which then could leave you vulnerable down the Kemmel Straight down towards the Les Comps chicane. People sometimes go for a dive bomb into Bruxelles, as well as maybe into Vanya, depending on the Vanya chicane if you have the fresher tyres. Also the bus stop chicane as well. We saw like examples from Max Verstappen back in 2023 making the moves to make his way through 2022 making his way through through the field, overtaking the likes of Sebastian Vettel and Alex Albon in that bus stop. But there's plenty of overtaking spots today. The favoured ones will probably be turn 5 on the entry of the Les Combes chicane, due to just the DRS and how powerful it is down that whole Kemmel straight on the exit of Air Rouge and Raidillon. But one thing's for certain, racing will not be missed out today in Spa.
Yeah, certainly will be. And the racers taking part in these races will be looking for a very, interesting event ahead of them. Of course, they're going to have to structure the next 24 hours out of them as well. But plenty of racing going to be taking place across these teams here tonight. One's keeping an eye out on Fastest Stay True, IRT, and All Elite Racing teams should be some teams that everyone is sort of familiar with. But we've got a variety of different runners out in the field. I'm also keeping a very firm eye on Owls Esports for what might be obvious reasons for people who know me. They're racing in the Williams alongside the commentary team tonight, as some of the commentators, yourself included, Rio, getting involved in this particular championship.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to get involved with it. There's going to be, without a shadow of a doubt, so much action to be brought upon us. Many wonderful teams here, like you mentioned, FST, Owls Esports, EXA, the content team as well, which is going to see plenty of famous commentators racing along, SDR League, IRT, Fromage as well, which will probably be one of the favourites to win the overall championship, considering just the pure pace that they have brought on. But one thing I do want to ask you, who do you reckon will be the champions of the whole event?
Oh, it's a cracking question, that one, because there's plenty of talent out on the field. I'm thinking also the W1 girls are going to be racing as well across a variety of the different teams as well. So they're going to offer their own individual talents to a variety of these different teams. But surely you're thinking IRT will be ones that will obviously bring a little bit of more professionalism to the environment. All Elite will try to, maximise this one as well. But, surely you're going to be looking at those sort of teams maybe trying to fight out for the title here tonight. But at the end of the day, the real winners, of course, are Macmillan.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, I am so excited to see what can happen here. Not long to go until we get going here in Spa-Francorchamps. Just waiting one of our drivers here, because we currently have 19 sat in the lobby. But I'm thoroughly excited here for who I think could be champion. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, the team driving in the Aston Martin from our race, and just seem to, I say they have arguably one of the strongest lines, if not the strongest lineup overall. But I'm so excited to see what happens as we can now see live pictures of the lobby as we are awaiting the start here.
Yeah,
just 24 hours. It's going to be quite the long one.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one indeed as well. You can see over to the, rather that side, there you can see that we've got obviously a bunch of people that are definitely getting themselves ready for this event. As I said, we are waiting for just that one person on there. So we're just waiting on them to join, and then we'll be getting going with our first round of the next 24 hours. What an event it will certainly be. That is for certain. One thing that I want to keep an eye out on, though, if you don't mind, is that we also want to talk about not just, of course, all the racing that's happening ahead of us, but critically, of course, the big winners of this one is the Macmillan Cancer Support. These are, a bunch of people that have done so much for people across the United Kingdom for support with cancer. And, of course, as I said, give a quick scan of that QR code up there and give any money, if you can, to Macmillan Cancer Support and to these guys as well who are taking part in this event over the next 24 hours. More of a personal story for myself. My grandfather had cancer, esophageal cancer, unfortunately passed away over 10 years ago, and Macmillan Cancer Support were involved in that process. So, every pound you can give will be a massive support to them. So thank you very much to any single one of you that's already donated as well. We're already at quite a substantial amount, Rio.
Yeah, without a doubt, it goes to, like, I'm going to reiterate what you said, it goes to a great cause. And the more money we do make, that means the more wildcards we could have. There's obviously the likes of presets, there's the forfeits of the commentary team. Obviously there will be sing-alongs, there will be people dyeing their hair, getting highlights, doing sing-alongs and everything. It should be good for this event. And I'll reiterate once again, it goes to such a good cause. Just any money that you have spare, feel free to donate. Obviously, like you said, the QR code. It's just such a great cause, and to be able to be participating in it and also comment on it, it feels like a massive honor. So I'm also glad to be here as well, to be helping out for such a great cause. But we have got drivers readying up. It's about to go for the Grand Prix.
Yeah, we've got plenty of racing about to kick off here. We've, of course, got plenty of incentives, as Rio has just alluded to. We're over £500 now in our donations before we've even got going. So thank you to every single one of you for that one. So fingers crossed. We'll hit the next marker. I believe the next marker for that one is 600 for the SRC giveaway. And Jess and Max will be both singing at 650. So let's see if we can get that one set up before Jess gets in for round number 3. Let's get going then, folks, because we are about to go live for what will be no doubt a very, very interesting event ahead of us here in Belgium. So Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps brings its own individual flavours. It brings its own individual, sort of challenges, doesn't it, for the drivers out on the field. The one thing that is for certain, though, is they're going to be getting straight into the swing of things because there's no qualifying. We're straight into the main race, Rio.
Yeah, without a doubt. Qualifying normally in these events, obviously it's only a one-shot qualifying. Typically, they normally use this lap to somewhat get warmed up as well whilst going full attack, but they don't get that today. It is just going to be straight into the action, and your race could be over within a couple of minutes of starting the whole event. But we have got plenty of action to happen. Obviously, random grid. We're going to find out the grid in a couple moments' time as we await to load in to the session. And who should we have a look? Should I look at race director? Who is on pole? It's Robbo on pole position, ahead of Chris in the Aston, then Tua in the other Mercedes. So Mercedes first and third. Cole is lining up fourth. Then on the third row, it's Justin and Will Gibson. And then on the fourth row, we have Zach Styler and Heather. And then on the fifth row, we have Yaltzin in the house alongside Harmon in the Racing Bulls. That's your top 10 for the opening grid of the day. And then Carl and Yarrow on the sixth row. Gregory Prizabil and Denny Skurs is on the seventh row. Raza and Ollie together on the eighth row. And then on the back row of the grid, Lucas SL and Joker lining up together. And something we can be upset about, Ollie Hornby starting in 16th.
Oh, good old Holly Hornby will be starting in 16th. He needs to climb up those standings if he wants to get any shot at potentially taking a race victory here tonight. But of course, at tonight, this afternoon, I'm very used to doing evening streams, I must admit. We are waiting on the drivers, though. Of course, want to be very keen to get going with this one. Of course, the race should have got started at 1 o'clock, so we're running slightly behind as we just get people involved and get connected into this lobby. Of course, as said, everything is benefiting Macmillan Cancer Support, so we've got that QR code up in the top right. Get your phone out, give a scan, and give us a little bit of a donation for supporting Macmillan Cancer Support. We're currently at £552 and a penny, so if we could get to £2,000, that's the main goal, but we have got some additional goals beyond 2,000, so any pound you give will of course help us out here at CSS. Thank you to everyone that's already donated. 20 drivers then, very keen to get going with this one here. Early indications suggesting that the Mercedes are going to benefit here from the random grid. Is that what is going to happen, or is overtaking going to be palpable?
Overtake it. This is probably one of the easier tracks to overtake, but the question is, what way do you go? Do you go just for the minimum downforce, or do you go for a bit of downforce to be strong in that middle sector? Obviously, Spa-Francorchamps, you can go either way. Obviously, drivers prefer the lower downforce because that allows them just to be able to easily overtake and sometimes hold position if you're against someone with the higher downforce. But there's something that's not going to miss. Random grids can create a lot of action. It puts the fast drivers in the mid pack, or at the front, or at the back. It puts some of the slightly slower drivers at the front or at the back as well. They could be able to pick up some pieces from the scraps that we do have to ensure. But surely not long to go now here in Spa-Francorchamps to kick off the 20 races and to kick off the 24 hours in which will be surely a stunning event.
Yeah, Team EXA and TDR Esports for Mercedes first and third respectively for this race here, so they will be feeling a little bit more positive to start off with this one here as well. Down of course towards that midfield, you've got the commentary Team Owls Esports in the Williams as well, so be worth keeping an eye out and see how they manage this one. Ollie Hornby obviously down in 16th is a bit of a drive for the Williams outfit. So that's us on a postcard, folks. If you are just tuning in, pop us a comment if you're watching live on Twitch. Of course, we're over on YouTube as well, so we are double streaming here tonight, so thank you to every single one of you that are tuning as well. Big shout out as well to, I believe, one of my colleagues, Jason, as well, who's also going to be taking a little bit of a view on this one as well. Hope you're doing well, Jace, as well. And then we've got all of these drivers are going to be hopefully putting a bit of a show on for you and the rest of the viewers here today, as we've just had another donation and a $5 just gone in, 55701. Thank you, every single one of you tuning in for the next 24 hours. We're about to get going here in Spa. No more waiting. Let's go racing then here at CSS as we go with down the way towards the source turn number 1. It might be a bit of an early dive potentially from the Mercedes, but a great good start from FZR's Aston Martin's Christ as he does his really good job. We've got a yellow flag immediately waving straight away up down towards then Eau Rouge as he heads towards Radion, and it's a decent start, not bad at all from those midfielders at the front, but we have had a few changes here, and with the 18 runners here towards the back, we've had people struggling already.
The top two wheel to wheel as we make our way in towards Lake Chicane. Around the outside, the Mercedes will try. Off the circuit goes the Aston Martin. The two Mercedes doing battle as well. Wheel to wheel as we go on the exit of the Lake down towards Bruxelles. And Chris trying to make the move on Tua, but Tua into the lead. The pole sitter down into fourth. Now on the inside, the McLaren of Justin trying to make amends, and the pole sitter has gone down from first. Oh, wheel to wheel now. 4P, 4 and 5, but they do fend off the McLaren as we make our way down towards Pouon. Further back, Gregory Prisabille, as someone went very deep off into the wall there, and to make our way through Pouon corner now. The top 11 are starting to sprint away. Ollie making up 5 places from 6th on the grid. Further back, both Alpines going for it in Pouon, and both going off the circuit as we make our way down towards the Vanya chicane. The top 4 were doing a lot of battle, but Tua from third on the grid now leads the Belgian Grand Prix. Chris has made up positions. Will Gibson's made up places. Robbo's lost places. That's round at the back. Goes the Haas. I think that was Cole spinning around. There's damage once more for one of the other cars. Let's see what front gameplay it was, as now we run down the straight down towards Blochemont. Ollie Hornby as well, going wheel to wheel as the Racing Bulls of Dennis. Side by side they run. The other Williams, the Joker, looking to make it free wide. Through Blanchemont corner we go. Ollie Hornby running a little bit wide off the circuit as we make our way down towards the bus stop chicane. Ollie is still going to make this dive down on the inside, but has to stay behind. And as we go through into pit lane comes Ollie. But as we go on to lap number 2, it's an action-packed start.
Well, a real action-packed start. Great switchback at the final corner at the bus stop from Lucas as well to lead the way from the front. Justin already getting the move done on Icky, though, as he gets that move up to P4. The future racing team man here tonight wanted to try his hardest as he can to climb up the standings and get as close as he can to the 2 Aston Martins represented from Arjun FZR. So, situation report for them as we've got Zach Schneider, also getting into the mix here. Going to get a nice tow as well from his McLaren teammate as he heads his way straight then into Lacombe as they go side by side through here. Might be a little bit of racing between the pair of them. Very well handled indeed. There might be a little bit of debris on circuit there, but the Aston Martin gets it done around the outside as they're headed to Bruxelles. Here comes Gregory as well, as Gregory Pritzball gets his move done on Icky as well. Losing the rear slightly does the Ferrari, but manages it very well indeed. Leading the way, the Mercedes of Tour, no issue whatsoever. Will Gibson still leading the way from Pil Corris, and then from Justin Styler and Prisball. Icky's doing a decent job. We've got a little bit of racing happening in that midfield. We've got Raza getting the mix alongside Lucas and Dennis as well in this one. Keep an eye out on that one. We've also got Verghese going around the outside then of Dennis in that one, and Skers can't get any move done on that, and he holds up to P12 in the end. It's been action-packed, and we're only on the second lap, Rio.
Absolute cinema racing here as we go down the back straight once again. Will Gibson able to close that gap down to 9.5 tenths of a second. We make our way through Blanchemont. The straight line speed on that Mercedes seems to be superior as we enter the bus stop chicane. Further behind though, Joker has went wheel to wheel momentarily with Dennis, but then Joker was able to get the move done as we go into the bus stop chicane once again to head on to lap 3 of 22. Just the positions that have made it. Gregory Prisabille has made up 7. Your pole sitter Robbo's lost 6, and then Joker's made up 6. Cole, who started in 4th, has lost 11. Heather's lost 6. Tua's made up 2. Will Gibson's made up 4th and is now within DRS as we make our way down towards Air Rouge and Radion, climbing the hill, one of the most famous corners in motorsport history, arguably the most famous corner, as we plummet down the Kemmel Straight, down towards the Lake chicane. The rear light for Tua is flashing as Will Gibson, you can just see, trying to pick up some cooler air there as we enter into the Lake chicane. The top 6 will all stay aligned astern. Further behind though, Raza getting close to the rear of the Kick Sauber. No battery left on the Alpine, but that's not going to do anything because the DRS will kick in and they will run wheel to wheel in the Lake chicane, but Raza Gamer will make the move and get them up into 9th place.
Yeah, they're struggling with the electrical energy in the Ferrari power unit in the back of that Kick Sauber, and it looks like to me it's going to be all done and dusted as well with the other Alpine down the inside of Bruchsal. Hook tie hooking between the pair of them. Lucas ends up managing just to hold on, but he'll lose the position anyway. Down to P11 they will go. OSRT's Joker now trying to close down on someone who's really struggling at the moment with his electrical power in the power unit of that Kick Sauber. Gregory Prisibille doing a decent job there to get up now to the back of both of the McLarens. That's the All Elite Racing Team and F1 server teams here tonight. Ventauri's former Ventauri driver, Zach Styler, and then FRT's Justin up in P3 and P4 and P5 respectively, trying to close down on Pilla Corris and Gibson at the moment. But Toa still doing a really good job from P3 to still lead this race here. Might be in holding a little bit of a DRS train at the moment, but he's not really being caught up at the moment from either of the Aston Martins.
As we run into the the bus stop chicane once again. To head to lap number 4, the 2 Aston Martins are hunting down their prey of the Mercedes, who is currently leading the way. So I found interesting, both McLarens are on the hard compound tyres. Obviously, there's no teammates here because there's 20 different teams participating, but they have to. There has to be, there's only 10 Formula 1 teams, so there has to be 2 different teams within the same car. So what McLaren will come in first between the likes of Zach and Justin. They're doing really well to stick with this DRS train. Chris is getting really close to the rear of Will Gibson. Obviously, Climb Air Rouge and Radion. We go down the Kemmel Straight, and the 2 Aston Martin, the 2 green machines, preparing to do battle. We go down the Kemmel Straight. 2 is going to be caught, but then the Aston Martins will be roaring beside them as we go into the Lake chicane. Chris is going to try it right around the outside into towards the Lake chicane. Thinks better of it. Further behind, the 2 Alpines once again dueling, and Carl's able to get ahead of Razza Gamer as we now heading towards Brussels once again. Chris is going to look for it, thinking of the dive to the inside, but Will Gibson able just to chop that one off.
Yeah, Gibson, it's pretty good racing actually between Pilacores and Gibson. They're both racing each other, but not losing that much time to the back of Toa. So it's exactly what all of us want to see here, working with each other, but also fighting each other down for the next 22 laps at the Circuit des Spa-Francorchamps here in Belgium. Thank you to every single one of you tuning in as well. Another tenner has just gone into the pot, £567 and a penny for the Macmillan Cancer Support Charity. Any penny you can give will, of course, help support those in need of support while going through cancer. Please donate by scanning that QR code in the top right-hand corner. So, situation report at the moment. Toa still able to hold on, but both of the Aston Martins doing a relatively decent job to battle with each other, but keeping touchy distance with Toa. But Justin has had a fantastic exit through Blanchimont. Is he going to battle going through into bus stop, I wonder? Bit of a lock-up from the Aston. A little bit of a bang up there from the rear of Justin from Pilacores, but for Pilacores rather, from Justin, as the hard tyres are now starting to come into a little bit of fruition, one would suspect here, as they head through into turn number 1 at La Source. You would suspect here that the hard tyres are now just about starting to warm up, potentially get into that crossover period versus the mediums, I wonder, Rio?
Yeah, obviously in Spa-Francorchamps, due to the no formation lap, you start the race on the optimal tyre temps, but once again, we're going to go down the Kemmel Straight, and the McLaren is going to be gaining all the while as we go in towards the Lake chicane. Will Justin be close enough to maybe think of a send here? The Aston Martin goes defensive, keeps the place on the podium as it stands at the moment. But what you were mentioning was the hard tyres. Yes, they will take a while to warm up, but due to the no formation lap, they are able to just get the optimal temperatures to begin with. And in Spa, the hards are 2 steps harder than the mediums, so drivers always prefer to start on them so that the game can automatically give them the temps, and then they have to go on then when they go into the mediums, they won't have the tire warm issue. The issue that Tua, Gibson and Chris will all worry as well, along with Gregory, they're all going to have that warm-up issue on the hard compound tire. The pit window will open around maybe lap 7 or lap 8 as we go in towards the Vanish chicane. Once again, the top 6 were all staying as they were. Robbo, the pole sitter, down his yellow flags at the back, and I think that might be Ollie in the Williams, which it is. Ollie having a moment on the exit of the Lake Comp just before Bruchel's corner, and the Williams driver will drop down into P17. But as they make their way down towards the back straight, down towards Blanchimont, it is still the top 6 as you were, but someone who is getting close, Zach Styler, is getting close to the rear of FRT Justin. We make our way down the back straight, we head through Blanchimont corner, and Zach is going to maybe think of a move in towards the bus stop chicane. Someone who is thinking of a move as well, Justin thinking of the move, and then Zach Styler getting very close to the rear, under brake in the Lake of his you could say his teammate, but not really his teammate of Justin. Let's go down the main straight to start lap number 6 here of 22. In towards the source we go once again. The top 6 still staying as they were.
You can sense that Styler's perhaps getting a little bit tense here at the moment here. He thinks that perhaps that his car and himself is a little bit faster than his teammate and wants to now have a go at the likes of Pilacores and Gibson in P3 and P2 at the moment. Up Eau Rouge they go into Radion. He'll get the nice toe, but the use of overtake has been very aggressive as Ollie Hornby, his race is going from bad to worse, and now a 3-second penalty already for track extension issues as Will Gibson and Pilacores are just sort of navigating their way around the circuit. Gibson actually diving to the inside to try and get into some cool air, perhaps feeling the engine temps starting to get a little bit high here as we've got a little bit of an overtake down for P12 here. Joker's just been overtaken by Dennis Kurz here, down in P12 here. Now trying to chase down Razza Gamer in the other Alpine, but what a weird start this has been for Ollie Hornby down at the back. He's already now committed to his 2nd pit stop of the race.
Exactly, he had more front wing damage there as he came into the pit lane for the 2nd time in the opening 6 laps of this Grand Prix. We go through the Vanish chicane once again, and the Haas in P7 starting to maybe gain a little bit of time on the guys of Gregory Priswell. Gregory obviously on those die mediums, he's just stuck here at this current moment in time, stuck behind the two McLarens and the two Astons and the Mercedes Tour. The pole sitter is currently down in 8th. It's being caught by the likes of Carl and Lucas for 9th and 10th. So our pole sitter could be down to P10 by the end of this opening sim. But once again, we're going to make our way through Blanchimont down towards the bus stop chicane. The rear light of Justin is flashing, but look how this is the closest Will Gibson has been for some time as we go through the bus stop chicane. Round turn 19, put on the power. The Mercedes out of shape as we make our way down towards turn number 1. Bit of battery use from Tour as we go in towards La Source for the 7th time in this Grand Prix. It's a Mercedes-powered top 5 here. And then was the Ferrari as well. Yotzin in the Haas as well. It's slowly starting to gain time on them, but it's just the DRS that kills them. But surely a change of lead as we make our way down for Air Rouge, up to the top of Radion. The DRS, the ERS, and the slipstream will all kick in a proper moment's time. The DRS is enabled. The rear light is flashing for Tour. Then the top 2 in the Grand Prix about to do battle side by side towards the lake up chain. They go. Will Gibson will roll around the outside. Tour will try to keep it on the inside, but nothing can be done. And Will Gibson takes the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix.
Whoa!
And then they make a slide into the gravel. Goes to Mercedes, and after losing the lead, they drop down to 2nd and 3rd and 4th. Make that 5th position at the other Aston, and both Papaya McLarens make it through as well. As we go in towards No Name, that is the worst possible outcome it could have been for Tour.
Yeah, he saw that, didn't we? Going through La Source, the rear just stepping out, and then it's just stepped out horribly. Again, I'm wondering if his tyres are not just burnt, but he's actually overcooked them a little bit here, and those rears are really starting to pay a horrible price at the moment for Tour, as Principal will now get over the back of Tour at the moment. Both of the McLarens on the hard tyre, probably the better strategy at the moment, now are going to continue racing with both of the Aston Martins, but it's not a matter of if, but rather when, as the hard tyres become the better tyre to be on. But as it stands so far, it looks like the fact that Gibson and Pillacoris have only had maybe half a battle at the moment throughout this race, not really alighting those tyres too aggressively, may mean that this strategy is just working out ever so slightly for Pillacoris and Gibson. Will both of the Aston Martins consider a pit stop, I wonder, as they go through here? No, they both maintain their current positions at the moment, as Tour's down to P6 and Principal now up to 5th.
Side by side, they ran through the bus stop chicane to try the old switcheroo on the exit, but nothing doing there. Gregory Principal now has a lot of work to do to try and get back into that DRS. Drop down to 9/10, but as we apply the power and make our way down towards Air Rouge and Radion, I think Gregory will just miss out on that DRS. It's 1 second he might have got it, but it might have been a foul that they missed out by. But back to the leaders, though. The 2 green machines might do battle. We go down the Kemmel Straight once again, and Will Gibson, who got the lead for a lap, instantly going to lose it, and Chris is going to move back up into the lead, and further behind the 2 McLarens might do battle as well. Gregory Principal, I can tell you've missed out on the DRS, but through the middle sector, they might be able to get back up once again. Will Gibson, look how close they are able to stick to the rear of Chris. As further back, Joker, Cole, and Razza run wheel to wheel. Razza dropping down to 14th, Cole up to 13th, Joker up to 12th, but in the lead fight, it is still Aston Martin 1 and 2, McLaren's 3rd and 4th, Gregory now in 5th, and Tour, who I believe last lap was in 1st, now down into 6th already.
Yeah, Chris Pillacoris now up in the lead of this race, and Will Gibson, you've got Justin and Zach Styler at the moment still in P3 and 4 respectively. You've got Principal just starting to get now within the DRS territory of Zach Styler, but of course make note he is on the medium tyre, not the hard, so he's definitely not on the strategy he wants to be, but at least he's now into touching distance of this battle for the lead of this race. You've got Tour in 6th, though, is just trying to find a little bit of his mojo again after losing that rear ever so slightly at turn 1, and then again going out of Lacombe. Here is Yaretsin as well, who's started to get all over the back of Tour, and that may offer the hard tyre runner an opportunity to get as close as he can, as we've got some very close battle happening between Zach Styler and FRT's Justin. Both of the McLarens want to have a little piece of the pie here. That is that podium. Justin still holding on here. Tour in the pit lane. He's had enough of those medium tyres. Styler is all over the back, and it's a dive bomb going into La Source. He wants that one done and dusted. Styler, Justin. They're both going to get DRS off of each other, with, of course, Justin off of Gibson. But in the end, Styler thinks better of it, stays in P4. But the McLarens are fighting hammer and tongue because they think each other, they both think they've got the better strategy. They both think they are the faster McLaren in this battle with the Aston Martins. But if they continue battling, they're only going to lose time to the Aston Martins, and critically to Principal behind as well.
Exactly. Well, someone I have been impressed with. Well, Yeltsin was within DRS of the lead train. Now that the Mercedes pit, they have got actually 7.8 seconds of clean air has to her. But further behind once again, Dennis Kurz and Cole and Joker going wheel to wheel, and Cole able to get ahead of Joker. Dennis Kurz actually broken away from this battle as we go, as the leaders. Look how close Justin is getting down towards Puon corner. Will Gibson being put under pressure by the two Papaya McLarens as we head through Puon, making our way down towards the Valley chicane. The hard tires are truly coming into life now. It's just a question of how long will the likes of Justin and Zach go. Well, you have to think really when the rest of the medium when the rest of the medium runners come in, surely the two McLarens should have to work together just to ensure they lose as little time as possible. Just DRS swapping if that is going to be their fastest way as we go on through the Flat King down towards the bus stop chicane. Once again, the top four are staying as they were, but there was some battles on this last lap, and they make a way on this lap down towards the bus stop chicane. Zach Styler getting close to the rear of Justin, who starts to slightly pull away as we go on the break for the bus stop chicane. The top four and the top five and the top six staying as they were. Yalton, by the way, has gained a second on this lap, back within DRS. Lucas as well, as into pit lane comes the Aston Martin. Your race leader peels into the box to go onto a set of the hard compound tyres. That now gives the lead to Will Gibson, who has been put under pressure from FRT Justin.
Whoa!
As a bit of DRS games here, through the source, through goes Zach Steiner on the exit of the corner, and Justin has gone out side by side as we make our way down towards Air Region Radion. Will they remain wheel to wheel? No, they won't. And now Zach Steiner is going to be in non-battery as we climb the hill, pushing their way through the corner, and they're almost wheel to wheel. We go down the Kemmel straight, side by side they go, trying to make it 3 wide. McLaren's are doing battle as well.
Whoa!
Into the grass goes Will Gibson. In towards the lane, chicane we go. Gregory Prismo going to the lead. Off the circuit goes Justin. Through goes Zach Styler in the McLaren. And Freddie outside he goes into McLaren 1-2.
Oh, unbelievable racing here. Between the mistake from Zach Styler, he's locked up the front. So here comes then Zach Styler taking the lead of this race. Brisbane now back up to P2. Justin in P3. Gibson's in P4 from Yowitson up in P5. He'll do his best to get in that mix here, but you can see that DRS chicken at La Source. They didn't want to go in any position at all as the leader. Zach Styler said, all right, fine, I'll have it. And he's come out on top anyway. Great racing between these guys as well. We've got potentially Yowitson as well against Will Gibson. Remember, Principal and Gibson are on the medium tyre. Everyone else is on the hard. You can clearly see the hard tyre. It's the better tyre to be on as they collide going through into the next set of corners then. Going through to Paul Frere. That looks like to me that it wasn't going to work at all through there going side by side. But Yowitson comes out on top. Lucas is up in P5. Gibson now down to P6. I tell you what, Pilacoris picked the perfect time to make that pit stop.
I don't know why Will went for the DRS games, especially in the opening. If it was of course the last lap, I would have understood why. But it's just going to cost him so much time. Will does now come into pit lane along with Gregory Prisabil, who had a sensational 4th to 1st moment in the Grand Prix. I think the reason Justin gave up the time, he might have got the legal overtake when he ran off the circuit when going wheel to wheel was Gregory Prisabil. But into pit lane they both come. The question is now, where is Chris Pilacoris going to come out in all of this? The Mercedes Tour is now right within the DRS as we make our way down towards the Source. Look at the time lost already. They head through La Source. Your two net race leaders, Gregory Prisabil, is a mile away.
Absolutely a mile away at the moment, to say the least. Great stuff for Pilacoris at the moment as we've got an overtake. Lucas, Yowitson getting into their own little scrap for P3 at the moment. Of course, remember, these guys are on the inverse strategy. They want to go the distance on these hards, but Chris Pilacoris is in a really, really good position at the moment. Only 2.5 seconds back from the first set of 7 drivers on the inverse strategy. He will potentially have significantly more grip versus everyone else here. Wow, to say the least. And look how much time Will Gibson's lost in the end against Chris Pilacoris, Tower, Principal, and Verghese as well, actually, down in P11. It's horrible for the Aston Martin as we've got Harm now in the, just leaving the rather in the pits as he's now on an old set of hard tyres down in P16 at the moment. With half of this race done, situation report advantage for the McLarens, but Chris Pilacoris is going to be all over the back of them.
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, that was perfect time for the Aston Martin of Chris to come into pit lane. It was sensational racing. It was a bit cheeky from Will Gibson to run a bit deep, but it just cost him so much time. And now this has split up the McLarens of Justin and Zach Steyer. So that potential working together with the DRS swap, and that is no more. It's just them on pure pace. I would say they have to go to at least lap 14 here to make the hard compound tire work. As we go on to lap number 12 of 22, we are now past the halfway stage as Yaltzin maybe losing DRS to Lucas, who is coming alive towards the back end of this stint, is the kick Sauber.
Yeah, he certainly is indeed. Keep an eye out then. Lap 12 of 22. We're only 10 laps to go in this race at the moment. Gap between Chris Pilacoris and Zach Styler is now 14 13.8 seconds. That's more than enough time versus the pit stop that Zach Styler and Justin will need to commit to if they want to finish this race. Here comes as well, looking at the further gaps, we've got Chris Pillacoris all over the back of the first of the runners that are going on the off of the hard tyres here, as Chris Pillacoris will go alongside the Williams of OSRT's Joker. He gets that move done, no issue whatsoever. Toa is all over the back. Look at the overspeed that the Mercedes has got as he continues racing. This is for the net P1, by the way, after this is all done, but in the end, Pillacoris is able to hold on, but Toa has got something to prove after that end of that medium stint.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I was just looking at the gap between Gregory and Joker before Laycomb. 4 seconds that the likes of Gregory and Will Gibson was lost. And that it shows how much time lost. Will Gibson was undercut by Carl Verghese in the Alpine as Justin is slowly starting to gain a bit of time back on his in-game teammate, Zach Styler. The gap was 1.4, now back down to 1.2. But now Tua has to try and keep within DRS of Chris in the Aston Martin as they head through the Vanya chicane for the 12th time in their respective races as we head down towards Blanchimont. Once again, the lead in the Grand Prix. The current race leaders gap is 1.3. Through Blanchimont we go with Justin. As towards the bus stop chicane we go. On this occasion, they will also line astern.
Yes, this is going to be the one that gets a little bit more on the intense side at the moment. We're on board with Toa as he just tries to get as close as he can to Pillacoris, put any kind of pressure at the moment on that Aston Martin. But as it stands so far, looking like the significantly more cooler driver out there at the moment. This race has proven anyway for the Aston Martin Mercedes. If you are new to this, by the way, situation is that we are using the 2025 cars. That's why the cars look a little bit on the older spec cars. So that's the reason why you got Aston Martin Mercedes as opposed to Aston Martin Honda, if you are just tuning in. Chris Pillacoris then started to get back on the call. Wasn't able to get on the DRS on this occasion, however, but in this situation, nor did Tour against Pillacoris. He's losing time.
Yeah, that's crucial for Tour's race, because that neither of them have any battery. This will leave them kind of hanging, maybe, if depending on the gap between the likes of Chris and Zach and Justin, when the two McLarens opt for their chosen pit stop to go onto the medium compound tyres. Chris is going to catch these two at quite an unorthodox area as we head through Bruxelles once again. Before No Name Corner, he's probably going to catch him here through the Vanya chicane. Ideally, catch them on the exit of Stavolo so then they can use their battery just to roar on by, but there is not a lot of battery within that Aston Martin. As we head through Pouhon Corner, Chris is now catching the Haas and the Racing Bulls, but in towards the next chicane we go. They will keep line astern in the chicane due to them not being close enough on this occasion for an overtake.
Yes, decent stuff at the moment for those in that midfield here, as looks like the static just starting to kick in a little bit on the stream. Wondering if that will clear up. I think there we go. Just keep an eye on lap 13 of 22 at the moment. I'm interested to see when the hard tyre runners are going to be coming in here. Styler will want to hope here that he'll be committing to his pit stop imminently here, because both of the McLarens are going to be under a little bit of pressure, as we just see Chris Pillacoris has had enough being stuck behind one of the Hasses. He's going to be looking to get past the other Racing Bull here of Dennis Kurz. Remember, these guys need to still commit to their pit stop here, so every corner that Chris Pillacoris is back, he's losing time to people around him, but he gets the move done pretty clearly on that one against him, as we've got Toa is now getting all over the back of Cole and Dennis Kurz. He'll want to get this one done as quickly as possibly can, but again, someone who's willing to burn through his electrical energy, and he's going to find himself struggling for any kind of power in the back of that Mercedes. So he heads his way now down, up Eau Rouge, as he heads his way down then the Kemmel Straight, but you can see now using a DRS, just look how much time he is losing because he hasn't got any electrical energy, and that is probably Toa's problem throughout this race. He's just too aggressive with that overtake button, I think.
Yeah, about doubt battery, especially within this game, absolutely crucial, because slipstream in this game doesn't particularly give you all that much of a benefit, as we saw in F1 24. So you need to make sure you have battery to ensure you get that top speed. But this is now allowing the Aston Martin of Chris to pull away. The pit window for the hard runners is surely open now. The first pit stop was from Tua, who has got the oldest hard tyres of the top 8 of the ones who have pitted so far in the top 8, which is only Chris and Tua on 4 lap old hards for Chris, and then 5 lap old for Tua. As now we make our way through the chicane once again, and this is going to be hampering to his race. Look at the gap between Dennis and Chris already, 1.9 seconds. That'll be surely 2 seconds on the exit of the corner, which it is, and Tua has been able to recharge their battery really well here, 89% on the exit of the corner. On the exit of Stavolo, we go down the back straight, down towards the bus stop chicane. Will any of the McLarens come in? I think Justin is in, which he is, but back to the action for Tua, down towards the bus stop chicane. He's going to look around the outside, thought of it to the inside, now thinks of it to the inside, gets on the inside, side by side, the Haas and the Mercedes run, and that's a lovely move there. And then perfectly, Dennis Kurz gets out of the way of Tua, and he's able to, as then the yellow flag, I think someone has actually spun around there. It's yellow flag or something. Cole! What's happened to Cole?
Yeah, it looks like he's ended up spinning on the pit entry and he's managed to get his car perfectly in, so he's not lost too much time in the end. Brought the yellow flag out. Will Gibson a little bit of a lock-up as he senses that battle with Justin potentially brewing, tucks him behind. Then he's going to get DRS off of the back of the McLaren, but you can see now he's got to warm those tyres up, but they'll warm up relatively quickly. Good Justin. Looks like he had a little bit of a lag spike there. I thought he went off of the circuit. As we just keep an eye on this Aston Martin, he wants to get this one done as quickly as he possibly can, and he does get that one done. So he manages to get up to P8, but the question will be a matter of not if, but when. At the moment, with those medium tyres are coming on thick and fast. Toa with a 3-second time penalty. That's for corner cutting on that particular incident, which is very unusual to say the least. Looks like he did it at Lecombe, but he's now got a 3-second penalty to his name, which is not going to help his case in what has been a very up and down race, but predominantly the downs have been particularly prominent.
There might have been contact between Gregory and Tour, because you don't just get a 3-second just like that for corner cutting. It's typically for side by side through pool already outside. What a move by Justin in the McLaren, wasting no time whatsoever, making the move. That is a sensational move by the Papaya McLaren. Surely you're now going to witness Zach Styler come into pit lane as well. The other McLaren left the pit in this Grand Prix, but the gap between Chris and Justin after the 5 laps difference in tyres, 6 seconds, is into pit lane. Comes Zach Styler now to obviously go on to a set of the medium compound tyres. Justin's got ground to make, but surely with the pace difference and with the warm-up issue that they won't have to face on the medium, surely it's going to be a matter of time before the likes of Justin and surely Zach Styler as well will catch up to the likes of Tua and Carl and your now race leader Chris.
Yes, Chris Pillacoris now taking the lead of this race once again. Gap between him and Gregory Principal is around about 3.5 seconds. Looking in the YouTube chat at the moment, I see you, Jason. Thank you very much for being alongside us for this one, buddy. As we've got other people in here as well. Warder, it's nice to have you on board here. Gareth, nice to see you again, mate. Hopefully, I think we're commentating a little bit later on Sunday, aren't we? As we've got a bit of battle happening here between Tua and Carl Verghese as he now heads his way down here. And look at both of the McLarens getting into the mix as well. Oh my goodness me, look at Justin here getting down the side, 3 wide going through into Lecombe in the end, electing Zach Styler to get that move done around the outside from FRT Justin again. Whoa, big tag slapper, well held though from FRT's Justin around the outside, then a Bruchel as they go side by side through here. This is very well crafted indeed from the McLarens. Fantastic racing from Justin. He loves going around the outside, clearly.
That's the second time that we've seen the McLarens we've seen Justin do battle. We ran running outside at this corner last lap on the Mercedes. On this occasion, just completely sailing around the outside of Carl. Zach, by the way, has come out ahead of Justin on the fresher medium compound tyres. 4 seconds that Zach has got to gain. Make that 3.8 seconds now as they head through Stavolo down towards the curb of Paul Frere. And Zach Styler is now already gaining 0.3 of a second and is within DRS already of Gregory Prisabille. The question is, how much of a fight will Gregory put up, or will he just wave on the McLarens by?
Yeah, you've got, what's this now? If my math works out right, when they come across the line, 6 laps to go in this race, and at the moment, Justin is around 4.5 seconds, Zach Styler 3.5 seconds back from Chris Pillacoris. So, as it stands so far, Styler and Justin are in relatively decent positions here at the moment, but you've got, though, Gregory Principal in the middle here. Now, I'm wondering what his strategy is going to be on this one. He knows that he wants to try and battle for a podium. If he needs to, in order to do that, he needs to defeat at least one of the McLarens. So is he going to allow Styler through and battle with Justin, or is he going to battle with both, I wonder, as they head their way up Eau Rouge? And look, just pushing him up the hill at the moment. One would suspect this McLaren is going to get this one done relatively quickly. Overtake available, DRS open for the McLaren, and it is pretty easy pickings for the McLaren Mercedes, and the Papaya, the orange, the Tangerine Dream, if you will, manages to get his way up to P2. Justin will now try to battle hard to get into P3 himself and make it a McLaren double podium, but can it be a McLaren 1-2 with the sheer pace at the moment of Chris Pillacoris, who is 2 seconds up the road?
Show that I do think it will be a McLaren 1-2 further behind. Will Gibson running wheel to wheel with Tua through Brussels into no name. The Aston Martin of Will Gibson pulls ahead of the Mercedes, and the Mercedes who started first and third now running 7th and 11th in this Grand Prix, not making the most of the random grid position that they were given. Gregory Prisabel still just stuck within that under that second window, but surely through the Vanya chicane that will be over a second, which it is now 1.1 seconds, and surely it's a matter of time before Zach Styler gets within that DRS. In terms of the battery situation between Chris and Zach Styler, it is advantage Zach Styler, but as Zach continues to burn the battery, make that advantage Chris now. Zach down to 10% battery as we head towards the bus stop chicane. Will they get the DRS? The detection point is just here, but on this occasion, no, they won't. But surely just the sheer grip they got further behind. Cole and Joker running wheel to wheel through Stavilo, around the curb of Paul Frere. On the inside goes Joker to make the move, and Zach Styler now with the fastest lap of this race. Joker's going to continue to try and make this move though. In towards the next corner we go. Side by side they run.
Oh!
Run outside. There's contact wheel bang in there as they can remain side by side. But attention will go back to the lead as that gap is just 3/10. They climb Air Rouge and Radion, heading down the Kemmel Straight. The McLaren's looking to make the move. Neither of them have got any battery to play with here. Down the Kemmel Straight towards the Lake of chicane. Chris will defend this, but I don't think it's going to be a contest. Randy outside. Zach Styler goes to take the lead in the Belgian Grand Prix.
Yeah, strategy working, an absolute treat for McLaren, and Ventauri will be very happy to hear that their man representing the team at McLaren between All Elite Racing Team and F1 Server is now leading the way here on lap 18 of 22. Chris Pilakoris will just have to concede the strategy was just not on his side here. I nearly said tonight, this afternoon, folks, as we keep an eye out on Justin, who wants to chase down that as well. And remember, Gregory Principal has got a little bit of a potential race with the likes of Pilakoris. Ideally, he needs to stay deep within the DRS of Justin, because that will carry him to potentially a battle for P3 with 3 and a bit laps to go. Thank you very much to every single one of you who are tuning in. These guys are racing for the next 24 hours in honour of the Macmillan Cancer Support. If you haven't done so already, scan that QR code up in the top right hand corner and give what money you can to this cancer charity, who have done so much for 3.5 million people in 2024 over in the United Kingdom, and currently £568. Thank you to every single one of you who's donated already. Justin then leading the way through into the bus stop chicane as he now powers his way out of the bus stop chicane into La Source Gap. 1.9 to Chris Pilakoris. I've got a little bit of a bold claim for you here, Rio. I have a sneaking suspicion he's not gaining on Pilakoris as quickly as he wants, you know.
Yeah, the medium tyre is starting to fade away now as they begin to wear on. We know the tyre wear is all that high in the F1 25 game as we climb Air Rouge and Radion once again. Gregory Prisabel gets still within DRS comfortably as we plummet down the Kemmel Straight for the 19th time in this 50% opener of this 24-hour event as we go in towards the Lake of chicane. Further behind, Lucas running wheel to wheel with Tua, and then the Mercedes using yet another place here. Down into 8th they go. Lucas up into 7th. And maybe Lucas as well is a little shout here. Could maybe catch up to Will and Carl. Peter, top 5 could definitely be on for the Kick Sauber.
Keeping an eye out on Prezibol at the moment as well in P4, keeping on tabs with Justin here. He'll be happy that he's able to stay within the DRS. He won't be happy about the fact that Justin's probably not making the pace that he wants to here. Now, he's within the DRS of Pilakoris. He had ideally had this overtake done a lap ago, but unfortunately still at about a second back, unfortunately in Justin's case anyway, as he heads his way now through the bottom of the circuit, as he heads his way now going into the right-hander of what is Campus, into then curb before Paul Frere as he heads his way through towards Blanchimont. Justin, a little bit of learning to have here because he's out of DRS once again, so clearly the medium tyres now started to fall off a little bit here. Zach Styler, nothing to worry about on his side. He's got a lap younger and he's also already made the overtake. So with that in mind, if he does lose a little bit of time, there might not be a lot of time left in this race for Chris Pilakoris to gain that time back. As out of the corner they go, you can tell Justin starting to push, gets within the DRS now of Chris Pilakoris as he heads his way through into La Source. He needs a very good La Source here if he wants any hope of getting that DRS here, because it's going to be important for the next couple of laps to be so, and he's using his overtake in order to stay within it, and he has managed to gain the DRS off of that detection point, so the McLaren is now firmly in that fight with the Aston Martin of Chris Pilakoris.
As we see Gregory Prisball learning that battery, is gaining on Justin as we go down the Kemmel Straight. Gregory gaining, but does turn that battery off, doesn't want to do any battle to lose any unnecessary time, because Gregory in the Scarlet Ferrari feels that there is a podium on the cards here without a shadow of a doubt, being able to stick this well to the McLaren of Justin side by side. Yeltsin and Tua now down into 9th, Yeltsin up into 8th on those medium compound tires. But this battle for the podium is spicing up. There's 2 podium positions up for grabs here within this little free car scrap as we plummet down the hill towards Pouon corner. Turn 10 and turn 11 makes up one long, satisfying corner when getting it right. But Justin, it's surely a matter of time before they get at least alongside Chris. The defense, how well the defense is being put up from Chris, we will figure out soon when or if they run wheel to wheel. The exit advantage came down towards Stavolo. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th and 6th as they were. But Lucas is now all caught up to the rear of Will Gibson as he makes his way in towards Stavolo.
I want to give some real credit, by the way, to the Gregory Prisball there, because it could have been very easily using overtake to get their move done into Lacombe against Justin, but clearly a bit more of a mature drive. He knows if he can stay within the DRS of the McLaren, he's got a better chance of getting on the podium. But as it stands, though, he needs to make sure he gets the overtake on Justin at all if he can't get past Chris Pilikoris as they now enter their penultimate lap of this race. Gap 4 seconds to Zach Styler, gap 7 tenths for Justin, so Justin will get DRS again here, but how much time is he going to gain? Big lockup from the Aston Martin, not looking comfortable out there at the moment as Pilikoris. Clearly the second strategy of the hard tyre not working at all for him at the moment. Justin is just now navigating his way all the way up Eau Rouge into Radion and then down the Kemmel Straight here. And I've got to be honest with you here, it looks more like to me Gregory Prisball's actually got his battle and he's just decided, I can't stick behind you any longer, you're too slow. Is he going to go for the dive into Lacombe? He certainly is. The hard tyre runner is starting to get impatient, and I think that's a warning sign to Justin. Get this move done now or I'm overtaking you, sunshine.
Yeah, exactly. Further behind, Lucas and Will Gibson running wheel to wheel. Lucas got the move in the bus stop, but back into the Lacombe chicane. Will Gibson does make that move back, and Gregory Prisball, like you mentioned, is starting to get a little bit impatient here. The next tour will be the final lap of this Grand Prix in a race where Zach Styler will surely be your race winner unless there is a last lap ball as we head through Pouon corner for the penultimate time. And it's Justin who is getting close to the rear of Chris, who is also then being caught by Gregory Prisball, doing really well to manage their battery, even though they burnt it all down the Kemmel Straight. Look how well they're able to recharge. They've already got 20 or so % more than the likes of Justin and the likes of I'm completely, yeah, from the likes of Justin and Chris as well, as we go down the back straight for the penultimate time. And then Zach Style will make their way through the bus stop chicane in a couple of moments time for the penultimate time. But surely a last lap battle is going to ensure through Blanchimont down towards the bus stop chicane. Will we see DRS games like we saw in the opening stint? Will Chris go for it? A minor front right lockup there through the bus stop chicane for the penultimate time. The final lap has been started by Zach Styler. The Aston Martin of Chris will want to defend his position. Gregory Prisball will want to get the position. Not a lot of battery left for Justin, 30% as they make their way through the apex of La Source. We stamp on the throttle for the final time on the exit of turn 1. Make our way down towards Air Region Radion. Further behind, Lucas and Will Gibson doing DRS games behind, but as we make our way down through Air Region Radion, 2nd, 3rd and 4th might do battle here. Not a lot of battery left for Justin as Gregory Prisball will be gaining all the while, gaining and gaining and gaining in the slipstream, but on this occasion it will not be enough as we go under braking for the Lake Up chicane. Further behind, Will Gibson will be able to probably get that move as well as Gregory Prisball goes up so much through the chicane. Through goes Will Gibson in the Aston Martin. Gregory Prisball tapping the gravel a little bit as Will Gibson and Lucas run wheel to wheel, and Yeltsin might want to get a bit of piece of action here as Gregory Prisball now stuck on the rear of the McLaren as we go through No Name Corner and down towards Pouon.
Yeah, dirty air though off the back of the FLT's Justice car is hampering Gregory Prisball's chances here of a podium. Oh, no. He's trying to do the best that he can here as we've got more battle happening in that midfield between the likes of Lucas Yeltsin and Will Gibson. They'll continue holding on here, but as it stands so far, it's been a valiant defensive effort from Pilikoris. 3-second time penalty for Yeltsin at the death is a really disappointing thing to happen, but it won't matter with Tower with a 3-second penalty and Razagame 9 seconds behind the pair of them, so he'll remain in P8, but it doesn't look like he's going to get any more racing than that, to say the least. Lap 22 of 22. It was looking like all in fair one for Chris Pilikoris, but strategy has paid massive dividends here for people over in Belgium. People at ERT and Ventara will be happy to hear the first race done between Zach Styler as Gregory Pilakoris, Chris Pilakoris, Gregory Principal and Justin getting into their own scraps. Something's happened at the bus stop chicane as we are watching Zach Styler. Principal's on the podium in the end from Justin, and then Carl Vergeese, Will Gibson, Lucas Yausin Soa, and then Raza Gamer rounding out the top 10. You saw what happened there.
Yeah, Gregory went for a dive on the inside. Question if he was far enough alongside. It was contact between the front left and the rear right, between the Ferrari and the McLaren. So that gives Gregory the podium. But obviously, in this event, there's not going to be many incidents reviewed. So I do think that podium will stand for Gregory Prisabile. P3 for the Scarlet Ferrari. But your opening race winner of this whole event, Zach Styler in the McLaren. Cool, calm, and collected. Takes P1 in Spa-Francorchamps. Just awaiting a couple of drivers to finish the race now as Yaro and Harm come across the line together as the Racing Bulls spins across the line, getting some front wing damage. There is actually a car stationary on the line, and I think that might be the Mercedes of Robbo. If I would say yes, it is Robbo. As the two final drivers to finish this race, Ollie Hornby, who might be going for that fastest lap attempt, 2.1 seconds up on their Delta as he makes his way in towards the bus stop chicane. Can the commentator driver of Ollie Hornby get some positive from this Grand Prix? Stamp on the throttle, burn the battery to the line. Is it the fastest lap? Yes, it is for Ollie Hornby. Fastest lap of the commentator team. Ollie is officially the fastest.
Yeah, he's officially the fastest on the fastest lap, though, I think, in that one. Fair play to Ollie Hornby. We're following Heather to wrap this one all up then, folks. So our first round of 20 in this 24-hour event in support of Macmillan Cancer Support. Heather comes across the line to wrap up the very first round of this race weekend, this weekend of action here at CSS. So let's take a look at those. Let's take a look at the podium, of course, before we get on with the various results of that one. Very much up for grabs in the conversation, of course, about what's happened there with Gregory Prisabile, obviously getting very frustrated being caught behind the likes of Justin. Went for the dive bomb, didn't work out. We didn't see it live on stream, but no doubt there will be some footage of that one maybe over on Twitter, so we'll see that probably eventually at some point. Fingers crossed we will get the podium ceremony, because otherwise we need to put 50p in the meter for this darkness that we're seeing on the screen. But either way, what a race that one was, as we see the top step of the podium proudly celebrated for McLaren, because at the top step of that podium in the end, it was always really never going to be in doubt with the strategy that McLaren decided to pick in the end. Starting on that hard, moving over to the medium, worked an absolute treat to say the least for them. Let's take a look at those final race results then before we wrap it up for the first round here. The Stack Styler leading the way from Pilakoris and Prisabile rounding out your top three. Justin finished in P4 in the end. Question about what happened there. We've got the likes of Will Gibson in P6 with Vergeese in P5, Lucas, Yowitsin Tower and Raza rounding out the top 10. Outside of the top 10, you've got Dennis Kurz, you've got Robbo, Cole, Joker, Yarrow, Harm, Ollie Hornby and Heather rounding out those drivers. Tell you what a first round that one was. A quick reminder before we wrap this one up that we're going to be at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in just a few short moments time. But Rio, what a race that one was in the end. First round indicated that it might be a charity event, but no one cares. We're racing hard.
Exactly. It was just action-packed aplenty here. It was so fun to commentate over. I'm sure you found it enjoyable as well. Obviously, battles, the DRS games we saw from Will Gibson. Inevitably, it's probably something that cost Will Gibson a lot of time in the end, and especially gave Chris Pilakoris that extra chance to just pull the extra time. Because like you mentioned, after Chris had pitted and Will Gibson did his DRS game, that's the perfect time to pit because Chris wasn't involved in all of these DRS shenanigans in La Source. But none the wiser, it is Zach Styler who was won from Chris Pilakoris, and then Gregory Prisabile is your final podium. It's just an FC Justin feel a bit hard done after that contact in the final couple of corners in the Grand Prix, but if that's what every race is going to be, sign me up for more.
Yeah, sign you up for more. Sign everyone else up for more. We are at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix next in just around about 10 to 15 minutes time before we take a trip over to Mexico, Singapore and Australia to round out our afternoon sessions. We move into our evening sessions at Australia, Abu Dhabi, Hungary and Saudi Arabia for our first round on Saturday running. That's it for yourself, Rio, aren't you? I think you're done now for a little while. I think you're next back with us at 2:30 for the Monaco Grand Prix on Sunday, right?
Yeah, I believe that is so. Unless I need to hop in for anyone last minute, I believe that is just it's me done for comms for a while. But I'll be in the cockpit soon. I'll be driving in Singapore, where hopefully there can be fun there. But I can't wait to get back in the comms box later on in Monaco, especially if we reach the 800 quid goal, because that is no rules, no damage, no ghosting, but collisions are on, so cars will just be flying in the full wet conditions. And speaking about full wets, the next race is also full wets.
Yes, it certainly is. We're going to be looking forward to that one. Folks, keep an eye out on that one. We'll be taking a very brief break as we head over to our next race at Imola. Thank you very much, Rio, for your company on this one. We'll head over with Rekas and myself at the Imola Grand Prix in around about 10 or 15 minutes' time. Don't go away. We'll be back for more continued action here at CSS in support of Macmillan Cancer Support.
Yeah, I think it should be a good time here at Imola. Imola is a very tough track. It's tough to overtake on. It's a really difficult. It's a wide but very narrow track at the same time. I think track limits are going to be a huge factor in this one here, Jotter.
Yeah, should be a good one as well. I think a lot of microphones back up and running now, folks. We are here then for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. It's Patrick Coleman, as said, Redcast alongside us for this one. Should be an absolute cracker of a race ahead of us then, of course. So what we're going to be doing here is going into our next round for this one here. Looking forward to seeing what we're going to have sort of building for this one here. We're going to be looking forward to my favourite corner anyway. The Acqua Minerale corner is my favourite corner in any of the tracks available with us. But I'll tell you one thing, I am looking forward to just seeing how people manage the wet races. Of course, Acqua Minerale, wet race, full wet race. Plenty of drivers very keen to get going in this one here. Patrick, Imola brings its own individual challenges. It's a lot tighter in comparison to Belgium. There's not that many wet chances for overtaking, but in the wet, opportunities do open up pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, some drivers they thrive in these wet conditions, others not so much. So it'll be really interesting to see how they handle this full wet race. It's gonna get a very, very slick, very, very slippery out there. Basically making the runs to the Ravazza corners is pretty much just gonna be like a slip and slide all the way through. So if drivers carry too much momentum, they can end up straight into the gravel. So hopefully we don't see any of that. But yeah, from what I've heard, the Belgian race that we had earlier on was an absolutely fantastic race. And I think we have another banger here at Imola coming up.
I think it set the precedent, to be honest with you, on this one here, because the fact of the matter is that these drivers, despite the fact that this is a charity event, are still showing that they are racers in their blood. They want to make sure that they're winning the races out here. If you are interested in the current situation at the moment in terms of the championship, the main winner, of course, is Macmillan Cancer Support. Give us any money that you can by scanning that QR code up in the top right-hand side of your screen, and we'll give you any shout-outs if you do decide to give us any kind of money. One thing is for certain, though, is the winner in terms of the championship is AERT at the moment. They're on 40 behind F7FZR, with OS F1 Hub in third, F1 Server, and then Le Hotel rounding out the top 5. Points tally 40, 35, 32, 29, and 26 respectively. So early championship, we've got plenty of racing, over 23 hours worth of racing still to go. Though, Patrick, early indications suggesting here the McLarens were certainly the ones putting that pressure on, getting the strategy right at Belgium. They need to do something similar for Imola. Strategy-wise, though, out the window in the rain.
Yeah, because I mean, because typically it's about a 1 to 2 stop here in Imola at the most. With the rain, that really complicates things. Safety cars could also be in effect as well. So I think it's just trying to keep those tires alive. If those tires get a little too dry, we both know that the tires do tend to heat up really quickly, these wets or intermediates, if it gets a little too dry. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be full wets all the way through. We'll see if there's even going to be any pit stops in the wet. We'll just kind of have to see how that one plays out. But yeah, McLaren have a lot of momentum coming into this round. They just need to keep up that momentum. That's especially when you have a 24-hour event, because normally when you have like a championship, right, you usually have about a week or two in between each race. Here, you pretty much got like a couple hours at most if you're not doing a driver swap. Sometimes you might have even just mere minutes, as we are very shortly about to get into our one-shot qualifying here tonight.
Should be an absolute cracker. So we're going to have our one-shot quality before we go into the main race ahead of us. A quick reminder, of course, over the afternoon, we are, as we said, at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. We'll take a trip over to Mexico at 3:20 before we take a trip to Singapore at 4:30. 5:20 we'll see the Australian Grand Prix. Austria Grand Prix at 7:10. And then at 8 o'clock, we take a trip to what is typically the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, then Hungary and Saudi Arabia. That is this afternoon and this evening running. One thing is for certain, though, we're about to get going for what will be no doubt a very, very interesting race ahead of us here, Patrick. We're going to be taking a trip, as said, to the Imola circuit for this Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. One-shot qualifying and a selection of different drivers here.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun here. And that's the nice thing about the one-shot qualifying. It's pretty much all or nothing. you pretty much just go for it. You make a mistake, and you're starting from the back of the field. So I think this one-shot quality should be a blast here tonight.
Should be an absolute cracker ahead of us. So we are about to get going here, and as you can see, it's pouring it down with rain. So that should be, the real telltale sign of what is the expectations here, folks. We should be in for a little bit of a mixed bag here, but I think it's all going to be about who is going to be the people that, actually work their way forward in the best way possible. The indication needs to be who can adapt the most here, Patrick, because of course with the rain pouring, when it comes to the main race, when an overtaking opportunity arrives, they need to take it.
Yeah, they need to grab it with both hands here. They need to do exactly everything that they possibly can to make up these moves, because, I mean, a good starting position will help you out, but DRS is likely not even going to be a factor in this one as we do get underway with our one-shot quality here. I think another corner that we really need to watch out for here tonight is the fact that there is that Grassini chicane just before the Ravazzas. It can be very easy to get things all sorts of wrong, and you can invalidate very, very quickly. So an interesting thing to note is that there's actually a mix of tires actually in this session. A good amount of the drivers running the wet tire, and a few of them braving it out on the intermediates. So interesting choices before we even get into the race.
Yeah, very interesting indeed, as we see then going through the left hairpin here. Oh no, he didn't see me there corner, as infamously quoted by none other than Juan Pablo Montoya against Michael Schumacher. We're following Trent Newton at the moment as he heads his way through the left-hander towards then my favourite corner here, Aqua Minerale. You can see the car tends to be spat out on the rear pretty aggressively through this corner if you get this one wrong. Trent Newton, though, getting over the curbs, losing the rear slightly, but able to hold on. Gabo Santos at the moment leading the way at the moment at the top of the field again for guess who, McLaren at the moment, as he now heads his way through the next couple of corners. He's absolutely nailing the corners at the moment, as well as Gabo Santos. Trent Newton under a bit of pressure from Brad Holdham in the Aston Martin as well. Keep an eye out down the midfield as well. We've got Jess Ball here for the commentators in P15 at the moment on the wet tyres. Also racing in WE1 alongside Emma Clay down in 19th at the moment, as we see Gabo Santos head his way then towards the start finishing line, as he will set his first precedent. 1 minute 27.005 and 5/10 over Trent Newton at the front of the field, and that is immediately showing that teams represented at McLaren mean certain business.
Oh yeah, the McLaren drivers once again keeping up that strong momentum that they're carrying over from Belgium. Good to see here. Good to see some good times. The best driver who was on the intermediates was Oliver Nutt in P9, 2.2 seconds off of the quality time. So I was actually watching one of the drivers on the intermediates, and it seems like just the rear end was just kind of kicking out a bit. So the inters were definitely the wets were definitely the play here in the quali.
Yeah, you can see there, though, over 5/10 of a second for Gabo Santos, leading the way from the front from Trent Newton. Rober there in P3 from Holdham and Newt. Maloney from Frank, Brules, Knott, and Raza rounding out the top 10. You've got Joseph, Nick, you've got Sune, you've got Face, Cook, a Ball there with Momo, and then you've got Racer, Clay, and Hornby rounding out our 20 drivers here. 3 drivers disqualified from this event as well for track extension challenges. So we're not too long away now from the main race ahead of us. Again, that will be in the pouring down rain. Early indications suggesting the wet tyre is the choice tyre to be on at the start of this race, but we've seen in the past, haven't we, Patrick, if you end up bolting on an intermediate tyre at the start of the race and not committing to that pit stop, you don't actually lose that much time when the intermediates then come into play, because of course that dry line starts to form when you've got 20 F1 cars circling around a circuit.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing about the one-shot quality versus the actual race itself, because you do have that dry line that forms like you were just talking about. So when that dry line forms, it actually can burn out the wet tires a bit. So maybe bolting on those intermediates could be a bit of a wild card strategy, and strategy is about half the battle, especially when the rain just starts trickling down onto the circuit, especially like this. I mean, I brave the spectators, the virtual spectators on track right now that are just not even an umbrella in sight at the moment. But coming back to the race itself, yeah, I think the intermediates could be a bit of a wild card strategy that might not pay off in the early stints, but it can certainly pay off later on.
Yeah, the expectation here is that all of the drivers should be bolting on, I think, a set of intermediate tyres. Wet tyres will be the choice tyre at the start of this race, but if, of course, that racing line starts to form pretty nicely, expectation should be that at the end of it, that the intermediate will come into play quite nicely, and especially at a circuit like this one. It's not easy to overtake here, but the drivers are going to do the best that they can over the next few laps to become a race winner here in Imola. No more waiting. Let's go racing then here in Imola. Gabo Santos leading the way from Trent Newton. You've got Robin, Holdham and Newgang in the mix as well. 3 wide, potentially between all of these, as well as getting a little bit of a mix back in these wet conditions here. Going to be interested to see who's going to come out on top between this one. Robe going out on side by side with the Aston Martin, who's in the gravel there going through turn 1, and it looks like he might be just pushing Knott a little bit outside, but he does get the move done, does Robe. Knott is up into P5 from Holdham. You've got Frank racing side by side here with Holdham as well. He might be losing another position going through Villeneuve. That's not going to be helpful. Maybe some wing damage there between Frank and Brandon on the, Brad rather on that one, as Joseph actually gets the move done. No issue whatsoever around the outside maybe of Frank at the bottom hairpin here, but gets that one done nicely. Jack Maloney up into P9, and look at this McLaren here there of Oliver Knott, who wants to get this one done against the Red Bull of Robe. Side by side they will go. A wet tyre versus intermediate tyre. This is what we're talking about. The wet tyre might be the choice tyre to be on. Collision going to Aqua Minerale between the McLaren and the Red Bull. I don't know how the Red Bulls managed to keep that one in a straight line.
Yeah, that was a very, very good save there from Rob there in the Red Bull. Good save indeed. Yeah, just drivers are really getting punches. There's a Mercedes coming through the Crescenti chicane. Few drivers already getting those 3-second time penalties for track limit violations. That's going to be a really huge factor here tonight, because this track is known for some of its track limits, especially in the wet. It's going to be a bit trickier to get that car slowed down, as Gabor Casantos is going to go ahead and jump up with the fastest lap at the moment on the wet tires. It's a pretty even split, actually, in this field between the wets and the inters, as we do see Oliver Knott getting another overtake there just before Tamburello. He's up into 3rd place already. He started 9th.
Yeah, really, really good racing so far here between these drivers. Keeping an eye on Ollie Hornby, who's racing with Face at the moment pretty aggressively. Frank losing position to Nick in this little battle for P8 at the moment here, as Holdham is holding station up in P7 as he tries actually to get that overtake back done on Joseph. So situation for them is pretty clear cut, but one thing is for certain is McLaren. They were on top in Belgium. They are on top once again here in Imola, although questions about how Ollie Knott managed to get that one done against Rowe earlier on in this. So situation here, Gabo Santos still managed to put a bit of an edge here against Trent Newton. Gap now over 2.5 seconds, but he is on that wet tyre. Is that the choice tyre to be on at the early phase? Is the intermediate going to come into play within the next 4 or 5 laps, I wonder, Patrick?
Yeah, it's tough because the rain is still coming out very heavily. We could just see the spray being disputed by the Venturi tunnels underneath of these Formula One cars, as now of the majority of the field is making their way through Ravazzi. We can even see Oliver Knott getting a little tentative there as he goes into the Ravazzi. He's trying to stay close to Trent Newton, as Gabor is just checked out. He is already about 3 seconds ahead. The intermediate tires, they may come into play, but we might just see a bit of diminishing returns here with these intermediates. And it's always, there's a lot of math involved in racing. I remember telling my teacher in 3rd grade that math was not at all essential to racing. As a 22-year-old now, that is very wrong. There's always a lot of calculations that these drivers are doing, especially when the conditions are torrential just like this. So Oliver Knott, he's going to make the most of it, but I'm sure in Trent Newton's mind, he's thinking, okay, is the time I'm losing going to be worth it later on? Can I make up that time later on these intermediates? And honestly, I think that's just going to come down to the weather.
Yeah, it's all going to be whether the wet tyres are still going to be the choice tyres. Ollie Hornby trying to go side by side there with Face there in the Mercedes, who's got the time penalty to his name at the moment. A 3-second penalty going side by side as they head the way up through past Tosa. So here's the situation report now, as Ollie Hornby's trying to chase down to get into the top 10, trying to get past Frank Tank at the moment, but he's already up 9 positions. This man started well down the field in P20. Is he trying to do a bit of a last dash attempt here of a last to first challenge, I wonder, killer for the Le Hotel driver at the moment as he's heading his way down towards the final couple of corners here at the Ravazzas. But whether or not Ollie Hornby's got first place in his sight, either way, his race pace is suggesting he's going to be there or thereabouts. What is his lap going to be? Is he going to beat Gabo Santos? I don't think so, with the overtaking he's needed to do, but surely he's going to be near race leader pace at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that McLaren driver is just checked out. He's already looking forward to race number 3. And that's a V-carb off track. That is Nick going off through Tamburello. He's just slipping and sliding all over the place.
Yeah,
and I mean,
bit of a collision,
he's on those wets, but
bit of a collision with Nick and Brad, I believe it was, actually going through Villeneuve by the looks of things. There was just a little bit of tyre hooking, I think, and that is, by the way, one of the intermediate runners, and he's now received a 10-second penalty for gaining an advantage after cutting the corner, battling with Brad. Brad is on the intermediate tyre, bearing in mind, as well, as we take a look at the tyre situation versus Nick, who is on the wets. I'm wondering if the intermediate's starting to come on now, Patrick. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're all good there. And yeah, you actually bring up a very valid point. The dry line doesn't really seem to be visible, but Nick might have just overheated those wet tires as he goes very wide through Acqua Minerale. And now he's going to try to make his way to the Grassini chicane. That rear end on that Visa Cash App is just looking very, very loose here at this stage. We're only on lap 4 out of 32 in this one. Brad, he's seemingly got a better grip of the AMR 25, and we can just see that there's a bit of an early turn in there for Nick, who now has a combined total of 13 seconds of penalties as they make their way down the main straight as they go through the run to Tamburello. We can see that Brad Hold'em is really using a good amount of his ERS, trying to close in this gap here. Maybe going to try to think about a move into Tamburello. He thinks better of it.
Yeah, doesn't want to go for any kind of intense moves, I don't think, on this occasion. But you can see as they head through Villeneuve how much extra grip now Hold'em has got. I'm wondering if the wet tyres are starting to feel the effects of being on a dry line and not having all of that water it needs. It might need to go off the line to try and cool the tyres down. And that, you can see there, is what Nick is having to do. He's not immediately diving to the racing line. He's allowing the car to wash out a little bit wider so he can pick up. You'll see there, look, diving again a little bit to the inside just so he can get a little bit of water piling through those wet tyres. But you can see he's losing time now, hand over fist. 2.8 seconds the difference between him and Joseph, and Brandon will sense that problem at the moment. Gap for Gabo Santos, by the way, now 3.8. A side-by-side action going through Acqua Minerale. Brandon can't get too far alongside here as they're now heading to Curva Grassini. Will Grassini offer an opportunity for any kind of overtake? I wonder, as Brad Hold'em is going to be able to get on the power a lot sooner, you suspect, than Nick. Off of the power they will go, but excellently crafted from Nick despite being on the wrong tyre. Despite all of this, by the way, oh, here we go then into the next couple of corners. Here he comes then through the Ravazzas. Nicely done from the Aston Martin, but switchback from the Racing Bull. But he's going to have to go off the track in order to complete that one, and that move has been lost. Very well crafted from Brad Hold'em. He now retakes the lead of this race, retakes that position, P7, as he now heads his way down towards turn number 1. Will Nick be able to continue battling on these wet tyres, or is he going to concede, I wonder? I think on this occasion, the Racing Bull's going to have to concede it. He tries to look for it, locks the rear up a little bit, and he now has to face the fact that these tyres are now starting to fall off the cliff a little bit, losing the rear again now for those on the wets. They're overheating.
Yeah, I was actually keeping an eye on Raza, who is just right behind Nick and Brad here, as Formula Momo is going to go ahead and get a 3-second time penalty for track limits. But, ooh, a little bit of contact there between Raza and Nick. There is a yellow in Sector 1. That's one of the Saubers having a bit of a moment there, as it is going to be Raza trying to close in. Raza, at the same time as we were watching Nick and Brad battle out, Raza was also getting very loose with the rear end. So, and from this bird's eye view, at least the bird's eye view I got, we can see a little bit of that dry line forming up. So we may see a case of some drivers, if they are truly committed to this wet tire push, you may see them pull offline a bit to get into some of the wetter parts of the straights to go ahead and try to cool off these wet tires here. But, I mean, I'm curious because we knew that the intermediates were going to be strong at the later stages of this race. But don't tell that to Gabor, because he is currently almost 4 seconds ahead and just pumping out these fastest laps, lap after lap. I think he is, I mean, his wet tires don't seem to be falling off in the slightest.
Yeah, Gabo Santos has just sort of made the point here that, well, you know what, I'm on a wet tyre, but these are my wet tyres, clearly, because he's absolutely defying all of the odds of everyone around him at the moment, because he's still pumping out fastest laps out of a tyre that is now, not even arguably, certainly not the best tyre to be in, as we've lost Formula Momo with a 10-second penalty as he dives out of the wet tyres to move on to an intermediate over on the kick Sauber. So a bit of an error of judgment on the braking point there from Momo. Keeping an eye out on Trent here as he's starting to feel the pressure still from Oliver Knott at the moment here, going through Aqua Minerale. The rear just stepping out ever so slightly on the Ferrari, but able to regain control. But remember, intermediate versus wet tyre. But despite the fact Oliver Knott is still gaining at the moment on the Ferrari, I tell you what, McLaren showed some serious pace in Belgium, and when the rain has been thrown at them, the McLarens again have coming out on top here as it stands.
Yeah, a double podium as it sits for the Papaya Squadron, doing some very nice work here, especially Oliver Knott. He started at P9, mind you, as Face gets a 3-second time penalty for track limits. That is, I believe, driver number 5 that currently has some sort of penalty against him. As Gabor, man, I mean, I feel like he's got a set of intermediates, but he is spray painted those with try to camouflage it to be wet tires, because that man's got insane pace at the moment. He is checked out in another zip code or postal code, whichever term you prefer to use. But Oliver Knott is still pretty much right up the back of Trent Newton here. They're still fighting for the other spots on the podium.
Yeah, really, really good stuff and good racing at the moment as we start to see the wet tyre runners really begin to struggle, as we've seen Rob manage to get past Newt there for P4. Meanwhile, Razagame has just lost a position to Frank, who's on the intermediate tyre as well. He's wanted to get past Nick as quickly as he possibly can. Brad Holdham up in P7 and about 3 and a bit seconds up the road, so he needs to get these intermediate tyres working an absolute treat. Lap 8 of 32 in this race. We're having a little bit more of a slow burner race in comparison to what we had at Belgium, but the rain is spitting out a few question marks about what the choice tyre was to be at the start of this race. Clearly it was the intermediate to start off with, but Gabo Santos is now starting ever so slightly to lose time to Trent Newton, who's on that intermediate tyre gap, 4 seconds.
Yeah, and I actually don't think it's really as black and white as it kind of seems at the get-go. I think we're now kind of in a gray area when it comes to which tire is the better one. The wet tires are going to be better in some parts of the track, while the intermediates are going to catch up in other parts. Trent Newton is going to be the first driver not in a McLaren car to go ahead and set the fastest lap of the race. Rob now set the fastest lap, so your prediction came true here, as the intermediates are really starting to get fired up, and this is really, the scale is starting to tip towards those intermediates as we go on here. But the question is, has Gabor built up enough of a gap to be able to just stick it out on these tires, or is he going to have to come in for a set of inters? That is going to be the question here. I think regardless, we're going to have to see some drivers make pit stops here. I don't think even if you're on the intermediate, I don't think you can go the entire way on a singular set of inters.
Yeah, the real question here more on everyone's lips will be whether that, can they just do the full race on that one stop? And that's what I was going to suggest here, on a no-stop strategy rather. Is that a potential option? Well, at a circuit like this one where you've got predominantly medium-speed corners, the tyres are constantly being used, but these wet tyres and intermediate tyres are purposely more advanced when it comes to the degradation. They, of course, don't degrade as fast as compared to a dry tyre. So it's all about whether they can go that distance. I wonder what everyone else is thinking as well. If you're watching on Twitch or watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. Let us know what your courses and what your thoughts are in terms of strategy. Will the no-stop be the right strategy, or will the one-stop be the strategy? One thing that is for certain, the likes on those on the wets will have to commit to a one-stop, one of those being Gabo Santos. Now down 3.7 seconds. The wet tyres are not the choice tyre to be on at the moment, but he is finding every inch on that circuit, and he's using it to absolute perfection to minimise the time loss.
Yeah, it's gonna be damage limitation there for the McLaren. He just needs to because we can definitely see the dry line forming here. So the inters are now 100% the better tire to be on at this stage. But he did build up enough of a gap to where it's damage limitation is gonna be the name of his game here for the rest of the Grand Prix here at Imola. But the question is, how long can he keep it up? How long can he keep the can he keep it up? Because I mean, he is losing time bit by bit to Trent Newton in that Ferrari. But the real question is, can he hold him off? Because it's one thing to catch up to somebody. Trent Newton can probably catch him in about two or three laps at this rate. But passing is going to be a completely different ballgame, especially on a track that is like, it's so wide, but it's so narrow at the same time. It's a bit of a paradox.
Just keeping an eye out on the likes of Kart Racer, by the way. We're just following on board with the Aston Martins a minute ago as they switch positions. Brad Holdham on the intermediate tyre. FZR's Newt was on the wet, so no surprises they've switched, but already 2 seconds the gap between Newt and Holdham in just half a lap alone for the Aston Martin. So that goes to suggest the intermediate is definitely the right tyre to be on. And look at that, fastest lap despite the overtake as well for Brad Holdham. Keeping an eye out on Kart Racer here in the Haas as he tries to get to the back of IRT's Nick. Remember, Nick on a wet tyre, and it's looking like it's going to be easy pickings onto the grass just a little bit though for the Haas, but very, very precarious kind of overtake as they head through into turn number 1, but the Haas gets that one done. Maloney also trying to get in a battle with Ollie Hornby on the wet tyre now. He is really struggling out there as Ollie Hornby in the Alpine now for Le Hotel on the wet tyre, and then the fastest stay true team, that's the CFST taking part in this particular championship. Jack Maloney on the intermediate tyre trying to chase down Raza Gamer for P11 at the moment. But one thing's for certain though, there is plenty of penalties to make note of in this particular race, as we've just seen Face just overtake Jess Ball for P18 overall. Jess on the same intermediates that she started on. Situation though is that, yeah, plenty of penalties to talk about, and that is going to be the make or breaker, I think, if you manage to get on a podium, manage to get a decent position and be down towards the back.
Yeah, because some drivers have as many as 19 seconds worth of penalties. So, I mean, the penalties, they do stack up quite heavily here. I mean, especially because it is wet. There are so many, even in the dry, this is a very track limit heavy circuit. I probably, in all my time of commentating this particular track, I think I may have seen, actually, I don't think I've ever seen a race that didn't have at least somebody getting a track limit pen, even during a small 7-lap sprint race. I have seen people get track limit violations. It's so easy. Crescini is the place I always end up getting them when I race on this track. And when it's wet, the braking zones are a bit trickier, a bit slicker. So you do just kind of slide more than you would intend to. But I mean, that's part of management. Drivers have to be adaptable. And in these wet conditions, I mean, especially with the rain kind of synchronized drifting there from the V-Carbs as Jack Maloney and Nick go ahead and go through. Formula 1 cars looking more like Formula Drift cars out here coming through turn 7.
Yeah, it was fabulous, wasn't it, to just see the pair of them drifting through there as well. Perfect from the V-Carb team. Not the quickest way around Imola, but certainly the most beautiful way. Very elegant indeed from the synchronized V-Carbs out on circuit. Back towards the front though. Trent Newton, gap around about 1.9 seconds now to Gabo Santos. He's gaining at a rapid rate of knots. Just FYI, by the way, I am extremely worried about IRT Nick on circuit. He's now got 22 seconds worth of penalties. My math works it out right. He gets another 3-second penalties, so another 9 seconds worth of penalties. He's at chance of disqualification before we even get to the first round of pit stops here. So he's got to play it very carefully now, has the V-Carb down in P11, despite the synchronized drifting. Brad Holdham getting another fastest lap here as the track is starting to evolve pretty rapidly. With dry line really starting to become prominent, and the wet-tired runners of Joseph and Newt have had enough. They're straight over into the pit lane here. Gabo Santos hasn't had enough though, as Nick gets a 10-second penalty, and you've seen something, Patrick. Oh, Nick's out.
Yeah, actually, I was watching Nick, and the front tires just came to a dead stop. They just locked, and he got those penalties. He just slid in. There was nothing he could have done. Just kind of a passenger there. But yeah, that is unfortunate. Unfortunate. We are down one driver. We are down to 19 left on circuit. But yeah, the wet tires are definitely far gone at this point. They are begging for the sweet release of a pit stop, so these drivers can get on these inters to get back at it. But I mean, kudos to Gabo Santos there, because he's really done good to minimize the amount of gains that Trent Newton has been able to make up.
Yeah, Gabo Santos absolutely flying high at the moment as well as an infamous driver within the console sphere. Now, of course, switching over to PC, but it's clearly not helping him at all at the moment out on circuit on these wet tyres. Going to move over to a dry imminently, but he stays out another lap. Can you believe it? Does Gabo Santos. He's obviously considering trying to do a bit of a mixed strategy of doing wets to inters in the hope that the likes of Trent Newton decides to also pit alongside him. Shame about Nick, the Racing Bull driver. I think he's retired before the disqualification became a factor. That's his race done here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Let's talk around the midfield here. Let's go down towards, I'd like to talk about P13 for just a moment here. Always a pleasure to see the Owls brand, of course. People know I'm a Sheffield Wednesday supporter, so Owls Esports taking part in this championship is always a pleasure. HB Cook heading his way around the final couple of Ravazzas in P13 as he tries to chase down Emma Clay for P12 overall. That's the driver represented W1. Ollie Hornby and Race with Face, not showing his face very well here for P16. Both of those with a time penalty as well, as we see neither of them make a pit stop on this occasion. Looks like we've got a switch in position here as Oliver Knott on these wet tyres are really starting to struggle out. And onto the podium will go JSR Rob on the intermediate tyre.
Yeah, those wet tires are gone now. So, I mean, I'm expecting probably another 2 laps at most. There's only 3 drivers left on those wet tires. It's both of the McLarens and Raza.
Whoa, going through Trent, going through the Ravazzas between here, Trent and Gabo. Trent had a great exit going through into Ravazza 1 here, and Gabo Santos is still staying out, despite the fact he's going to be approaching a lapped car here. As they now head their way through to turn 1, this lap car is going to stay firmly out of the way here. I believe this is Momo. He will be ghosted, so it's not going to be a massive challenge in terms of space, but he doesn't want to be distracting either, as they head their way through into turn number 1, and they head their way down towards Ravazzas here. Trent Newton getting in the dirty air, makes a penalty error now as he heads his way through towards the Villeneuve. Around the outside he will go. Wow, look at the traction versus the wet tyre as the Ferrari gets that one done. But Gabo Santos still trying to battle with the McLaren, but in the end, gap around about 2.5 tenths now. Gabo Santos relegated to P2. Trent Newton leads.
What a maneuver there from Trent Newton. Whew. Mamma mia, that was a beautiful series of overtakes there. You don't really see many overtakes coming through Villeneuve, but by golly, did he make it stick. That intermediate advantage really showing now as he's already about half a second up the road. That is, like, this is a charity event, right? Where, you know, we love donations, and Gabor was not willing to donate that P1 easily. He tried to fight for it, and fight for it he did. He got those boxing gloves on, and a 1-2 pass for the lead. Very beautiful stuff there from the Ferrari.
Absolutely fabulous indeed from Trent Newton. Now, surely Gabo Santos senses that this pit stop is going to have to be imminent now. Is he pitting? And he certainly is. There's no surprises on that one here. Face another 3-second time penalty for his troubles, as well as Gabo Santos doesn't make the mistake, as a few of the other drivers have done, and speed in the pit lane. Brad Holdham getting the fastest lap of this race on the intermediate tyres. A fresh set of intermediates now going on Gabo Santos's car. It means that, unfortunately, his teammate Oliver Knott, who started on the wet tyre, has to stay out another lap. So disappointed for him at the moment, but Gabo Santos will now fall down the standings. Actually might get caught by fastest stage choose Jack Maloney as well. Probably will not get Sune on this occasion, as now we can see Sune just coming across the picture, but straight out of the track will go Gabo Santos and should get this move done. Sune actually does get the jump in the end, but only just here. That's the last thing that Gabo Santos needs with this undercut attempt versus Trent Newton. He needs to make sure that he's making inroads fast, so he wants to get this one done quickly. Otherwise, he's going to find that this undercut's not going to work at all. The last thing he needed to be was right tucked in behind a kick Sauber.
Yeah, Gabo Santos really needs to get this move done very, very quickly. He needs, if he has any hope of trying to catch up to Trent Newton to maybe try to minimize that pit stop advantage, he needs to get past this kick Sauber ASAP. He needs to kick that Sauber out of P8 and assume that position. And he just needs to just go for it. 15 lap versus 0 lap old intermediates. But that's the tricky part about this track. It's so hard to get these overtakes in that, I mean, even though a car in front of you might have 15 lap older tires, it really just doesn't make things easy, really, to get the overtakes done. You only got about 2 or 3 maybe good overtaking opportunities on the circuit. His best chance is on the run to Tamburello. That's really Gabber Santos' best opportunity is to try to get it here. I mean, you could have maybe sent a move down to Ravazza, but there's just a bit too much real estate in between the McLaren and the Sauber to make that stick. Now he will have the slipstream, and now he's going to have to make this move now. It is make or break time. The overtake is there, and using a good amount of battery, but that move is finally done. But how much time did he lose behind the Sauber?
Too much would be the words I think I would give on that one, to be honest with you. He didn't want to be stuck an entire lap behind a car that is, no disrespect to Sune, but he is a significantly slower car at the moment with being on that older tyre, so it just does not want to be caught here, does Gabbo by that one. And Ollie Hornby setting fastest lap of this race, a man down in P16. Position changes, by the way, for those towards the front. Trent Newton started in second place. He's up in now on the front. Rob finished in third, he's in second. Brad Holdham started in fourth, he's now third. Kart Racer started in 18th, he's now fourth at the moment, so he's absolutely flying high with Frank Tank in fifth place overall. Situation in terms of the tyres, though, the front six are all on the intermediates that they started on. There could be some brave souls out here that decide to take these tyres the distance. I doubt they'll be able to, but I would expect surely a pit stop is imminent. The leader gap, by the way, is between the one that you're probably be most interested in is Gabbo Santos and Trent Newton is 26 seconds. So as it stands so far, Trent will not get the jump on Gabbo, I think, by just around about half a second, especially now he's pumping in purple laps.
Yeah, now that he's on the optimal tire, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw multiple papaya purple laps here from Gabber Santos here. This is going to be a interesting run here, and yeah, Trent has definitely kind of lost that pit stop advantage. I mean, there's a slim chance that he might go the distance on that one singular set of tires. Still not exactly perfect stability there for the Papaya car, P7 at the moment. Sliding a bit to Villeneuve, coming into turn 7, that very sharp hairpin, and now making a run towards Aqua Minerale. But it's not looking too steady. The thing about the intermediates is that if you drive on a line that is ever so too dry, those intermediates, kind of like what we saw with the wet tires in the earlier stages of this race, they will fire up, they'll get overheated, and you're going to be stuck on an Imola-shaped slip and slide.
White, and like the Imola-shaped slip and slide, it's not pretty direct either, and as a result, drivers will find themselves in the wall pretty quickly. Got a strong battle happening for P2 here between Rob and Brad Holdham. Brad has been all over the gearbox of Rob now for around about a lap and a half here, so the Aston Martin very keen to make a move into P2 as and when he can, but losing the rear ever so slightly, that one is not going to help his case as he now heads his way through Villeneuve. A couple of bites of the cherry on the steering wheel to just get that car turned in, as the conditions, though drying, are still significantly wetter than any of the drivers would certainly like, as he now heads his way through the hairpin. A little bit tight on the brakes there from Holdham as he now heads his way up to the top of the hill and head down towards Aqua Minerale. Situation for him is he'll want to try and get up to P2 if he can help it. Gap for Gabbo Santos, by the way, and Trent Newton is now around about 24.8 seconds. He's gaining at around about 2 seconds a lap at the moment is the McLaren, but will Trent pit? That is the question.
As a good friend of mine would say, traffic can give and traffic can taketh away. And if Gabbo Santos comes up to this traffic and he gets kind of stuck, he might lose some of that advantage he built up over the last couple of laps. So if he gets stuck behind the V-carb of Jack Maloney and then Frank Tank just up the road, if he gets stuck behind their battle, because they're aggressively fighting for P6, if they get stuck in their fight, then he could just lose that massive advantage that he is building up over these last couple of laps. So getting past this traffic like it was earlier when he was getting past the Sauber, it is make or break here for him to get past this traffic. It is going to be so crucial. He doesn't have a lot of ERS to work with, though. He's already burning so much of it here, trying to make his way down to start straight, as Raza gets another 3-second time penalty for track limit violations. So we'll see here. I think Trent, his best course of action might just be to stick it out on the set of inters.
Just keeping an eye out on the situation with Brad and Rob there. It looked like that Brad ended up hitting Rob a little bit up the rear, so might have cause a little bit of an issue there, as we've just seen Joseph get an overtake done on Emma Clay for P11 down at the back. But Brad's still all over the back of Rob at the moment. So we've got the Owls Esports driver of HB Cook now into the pit lane to get off of these intermediate tyres. He doesn't think that he can go the distance on these intermediate tyres, but various drivers still have that option if they think they can do it. Go through then the couple of corners at the chicane is not looking particularly potent at the moment for Rob, who's feeling that pressure. Using overtake here is Brad Holdham as he now heads into the reverses. Will he be able to get this one done? Later breaker into the corner. It's absolutely class from the Aston Martin, who gets that one done clean and professionally. Now up to P2 overall in this one as well. Make note that Sir with face back there is the 18th place man, so he is ghosted as he is a lapped car, but Rob wants to get straight back at it as it goes through, heading into turn number 1. And I tell you what, Brad thought he had that one done, and I think he's been caught napping a little bit.
Rob, though, he lost to end play, though, so he's missing out right side end play on the front wing. So that's going to put him at a bit of a disadvantage as they're boxing it out now, trying to fight here. I mean, it is a charity event, but they are not donating any positions for free. They are just giving it their all here. They are still racers at the end of the day, like you said, at the top of the race here. And we do see Face just letting these drivers fight on through. But now with Rob missing that front right end plate on his Red Bull, it's going to be difficult stuff to try to keep in that gap. But, I mean, he's going to lose a lot of time to Brad here. He's actually losing time to Face now, as he is kind of ghost drafting here, coming through, making their way into the Crescenti chicane. Bit of a yellow flag with the other Mercedes. This is Josh Brewis, I think, had a bit of a moment coming out of turn 7. But so far, still, I mean, even though we've had a good amount of chaos here on this track, still no safety cars to speak of.
Yeah, 10 laps to go in this race now. Trent Newton still leading the way on 21 lap old intermediate tyres. Going to have to take him the full 32 if he wants to do the no stop. Brad Holdham doing something similarly. Rob with that end plate damage is proving to be a bit of a challenge for him now. Of course, that's now losing ground to Brad Holdham. However, he got that wing damage. Very unfortunate for the man now in P3. Though all the people around with time penalties, Trent Newton, time penalty, Cart and Frank have got time penalties. Gabo Santos doesn't care though. He wants to get these moves done. He's now up to P5. Frank is going to at least try and get in the wing mirrors of Gabo Santos, but the Iceman himself very comfortable indeed out there in the wet circuit as he now just glues his way around the rest of this track. 6 lap old intermediates versus 21 lap is a significant difference, but he's only got 10 laps to find, what is that, 11, 19, 23 seconds of racing. That is a tough ask.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very tough ask here to try to get this done, dusted, and delivered. But, I mean, you know, that's the beauty of our motorsport. Even in the virtual realm, actually, especially in the virtual realm, anything can happen in racing. So it's not over until that checker flag waves. And if Gabo Santos wants to get that move done to try to get into the lead, he'll have to fight for it. But I think if anyone can do it, it's going to be the McLaren. McLaren has been really strong here in the opening stages of this event. And, I mean, they got a lot of momentum. I mean, purple sectors all throughout. So, I mean, if Gabor can really just continue to pump out these purple laps like you were talking about earlier, then this could be a really fun finish to this race. The only way Trent Newton wins this, from what I can see, is if he sticks out the no stop, because he is about 8.5 seconds ahead of Brad Holdham. So, I mean, that's probably going to be his strategy, but we do have to note that he does have a 3-second time penalty. So really, he's got to stay within. He's only got about a 5.5 second gap realistically to Brad, because if Brad closes in within 3 seconds, then Brad can get the win through penalties.
Want to give some serious credit, by the way, to the likes of Gabo Santos, because how he took Aqua Minerale, I've never seen that before. He just, the amount of lock he put on the steering wheel to take that right-hander, and the car just gripped. It's impressive, to say the least. Gap now 22 seconds and falling against Trent Newton, but there's only 9 laps of racing remaining here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Wow, Gabo Santos drifting his way at the top of the hill as he heads his way through Aqua Minerale. He is pushing at the moment, realising that that the time is, they're now getting the better of him at the moment as well. And speaking of time at the moment, perhaps it's time for people to scan that QR code, top right-hand side. Give us some donation for the Macmillan Cancer Support Charity. We've hit £600, folks. Thank you very much to every single one of you who has donated as well. Just click that QR code and give us what you can in support of the Macmillan Cancer Support Charity. Gabo Santos is flying out there at the moment, even with those mistakes. Gap now 21 seconds, but he hasn't got a lot of laps remaining.
No, he needs to get a move on if he wants any chance of trying to snag this win here. He might just have to settle for trying to fight for a podium, but even then, that's a bit of a stretch. I think he might be able to get Kart Racer up ahead. He might be able to get him because that in itself is only about a 5-second gap, and he's making up about a 3-second gap. He's making up a good amount of time here. He's making up probably about a second a lap on a Kart Racer up in P4, but that might just be the best that he could possibly really get here. He would have get the position anyway, unless he drops back, because we do know that Kart Racer does have that 3-second time penalty. But Gabor Santos, he could probably make up 3 seconds in just a handful of laps. But the question is, can he even catch up to Rob? Rob does have that wing damage, which will put him at a disadvantage. But even then, that's an additional 4.3 seconds after he gets past Kart Racer. So P4 might be the max that we could see here, as the other papaya machine, Oliver Knott, gets a 3-second time penalty for track limits. So that'll make his day just a bit more challenging, as he has 6 seconds of pens.
Yeah, race is starting to get the better of those, with all of those time penalties to be applied here. I'm just keeping an eye out at the moment on Trent Newton, 24 lap old intermediate tyres now for the Ferrari man here. Will there be any punctures for those that are going to be committing the no stop? That is the question. We have, as it stands so far, got, what's that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drivers who are braving the no stop here. That's from Trent Newton all the way down to Kart Racer. We've got Frank Tank and Jack Maloney. We've got Sune also committing the no stop as it stands. Josh Brewis is committing the no stop, as is Emma Clay, and as is Jess Ball down in 18th as well. So plenty of drivers who think the no stop is certainly possible here, Patrick. But the question is will the tyres go the distance? Because I have seen punctures like this where people doing the brave steps at a track like Imola.
Yeah, I mean, it's high risk, high reward here at Imola. I mean, we're probably going to start seeing drivers like Trent, Brad, Rob, pretty much anybody who is trying to brave that no stop. You're probably going to see them, like, especially on the start finish line, they're probably going to move over to the side a bit to try to get on to that wet line a bit, just to try to cool off these tires. I don't know what their tire wear is at the moment, but I know it's definitely not looking pretty for anybody trying to brave out this no stop. A puncture could really just punctuate this entire race here. It could happen. I mean, I've seen punctures too. I remember in a wet race at Qatar, which is a weird sentence, I know, but we saw quite a few punctures from my time. So punctures can definitely happen. These intermediates do like to go pop if they get a little too hot. So we'll see if that happens here. Hopefully not. But, I mean, it's racing. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I think it's the late great Murray Walker that said anything can happen, and it usually does. As we see Gabo Santos heading his way through Villeneuve, you can see all over the back of Kart Racer these fresher intermediate tyres working a treat through into the hairpin. Late breaker from Santos should be easy pickings for the McLaren man, now up to P4, and maybe, just maybe, the wet to intermediate strategy was not the right call for McLaren here, and what is turning out to actually be a little bit of a non-race in the end for McLaren. They were looking very sharp at the start of this race, but with Oliver Knott tied in the brink of P8 with time penalties, and Gabo Santos so many seconds back here from Trent Newton, he's going to have to hope that the three drivers in front of them, their tyres fall completely off a cliff and they're losing 5 or 6 seconds a lap if they're going to have any hope of Gabo Santos winning this race here tonight. 5 and a bit laps to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's exactly what's going to require. It's going to have to require those inters to really just have a dramatic drop off. Even then, because I think Trent Newton is in a spot now where he can nurse those intermediates home. He's got a 7-second gap to Brad Hold'em in P2, and then a further 8-second gap to Rob behind. So I mean, a podium is actually very well possible for Gabriel Santos. They get past the lapped Williams there, making their way on through. As Gabriel Santos now just trying to chase down the Red Bull. Damage limitation for the McLaren. I know we've mentioned it a few times here in this race, but it's going to be just pure vitriol that these drivers are going to be driving on to try to get this one done and dusted. I mean, you got to give credit to Santos. He has definitely been the quickest car on track, but you can be so quick, but if you mess up the strategy even slightly, then your whole race could just fall to pieces.
Yeah, he's been certainly the fastest runner on field here by a country mile, but the strategy's not worked out at all at the moment, so he's been left with all of the work to do in the cockpit of that McLaren Mercedes. Rob is now going to defend it, but going straight through into the chicane. He wants to force the issue, and Gabo Santos has been forced into the gravel. As a result, I will say that sounds like a little bit of frustration at the Gresini corner, rather. Gabo Santos going for the late breaker. The gap was not there, and Rob showed him the door.
Yeah, that is... Whew. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely getting really punchy here as it sits. Right now, Gabriel Santos now, he's going to have to try to... I mean, he's got the pace to really just try to close back in to Rob. He's going to do what he can here. He's going to have the slipstream, but there is going to be Kart Racer, who is just directly behind, looking to try to at least get involved in this fight. Any position he gains here will pretty much be lost back immediately due to pens at the end of the race. But you got Santos now looking feisty, looking punchy. And he does not care. He wants that position back. This time it is going to stick. The end play damage on that Red Bull really just struggling here as it sits. So it is Gabriel Santos back up into the podium spots. Still going to get a good podium here for McLaren. But they got a bit of a trek to make. About 17 seconds to catch up to Trent Noon. Although with Trent Noon's penalty, he really needs to be about 14 seconds. But still, 14 seconds in about 4 laps, that's going to be a tough one.
He's going to have to hope that the tyres fall off a complete cliff. I think Alastair said about 6 seconds a lap. If Gabriel Santos wants to have any chance of potentially winning this race. As a result, Kart Racer all over the back of Rob. Of course, remember, as Patrick rightfully pointed out, that wing damage from the incident earlier on in this race starting to really harm any possibility of holding on to P4 for Rob. Collision at the Revatsas there. Looks like Kart decided not to put his foot down and get that one done. He doesn't want to be given a push to pass kind of rep in a charity event by the looks of things. So he gives that position right back up, and they'll continue their battle for P4 overall. I think Gabriel Santos might just have to concede that P2 is probably out of sight as well here, as side-by-side Kart Racer and Rob will go into the first corner. They're tyre hooking as they head their way through here, and into the gravel they will go. Rob shows again the door to an opponent, drifting his way round Kart, and may have to just concede. That position is probably gone now as well, up 29 of 32, and Rob is certainly getting those elbows out.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that again. I mean, spreading the wings that Red Bull gives you, I mean, that's one way to do it. He is going to be fighting for his life here on this track. And I mean, with that end play damage, especially around Imola, that's a very tough task to manage, especially in the wet. The rain is still falling ever so slightly, but we are definitely not going to dries at this stage of the race. It's still going to be inters from here to the end, about 3 laps to go. And Rob isn't Kart Racer isn't exactly letting Rob run away with this one, though. He is still going to try to at least beat him across the line, but now he's got end play damage as well. The front left for the Haas car is now damaged. So actually, an interesting thing I noticed is that we got 3 laps to go now. It is Kart Racer and Rob have both of end play damage, just on opposite sides, with Kart Racer on the left and Rob on the right.
And critically as well, both of the Red Bulls have got, you said about Rob having the wing damage, so does Joseph as well, the man down in P10. You know, he's got a fresher set of intermediates on, 16 laps versus the 28 laps of the Sune driver in P9 in the Kick Sauber. So Joseph, you know, got the better tyres, but he doesn't have the front end grip as a result. And I'm looking at the Aston Martin of Newt, who also has a missing end plate, but clearly making better use of the car regardless, as he gets that move done on Joseph and upgrades himself up to P P10 and now into the top 10 for the Aston Martins. They tried to chase down the Sune driver, as I said, in the Kit Sauber, but remember, he has a time penalty to his name, so regardless, both of these drivers are going to gain a position off of Sune anyway. Jack Maloney up in P8, bit of a lonely race for him now, just starting to pick up some pace here as he closes up on Frank. Frank's got a time penalty as well here, so if he just keeps it clean, the FST man could find himself actually rising up the rankings pretty quickly. He just needs to make sure that he closes up the gap as close as he can to Frank Tank, and hope that maybe Frank Tank can close down on the likes of Oliver Knott and Kart Racer. Might have a shot at P5 otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be really interested to see how this field kind of shakes out. Quite a few drivers with penalties, with the driver with the most pens be a Formula Momo with 22 seconds. As speaking of penalties, Josh gets another one. We are now in the penultimate lap of the race. Trent Newton still about 8 seconds, almost 8 seconds of a gap to Brad Hold'em in P2, who's got a further 7 seconds to Gabor Casantos. Oh, speaking of Brad, I just need to stop talking about drivers apparently, because Brad Hold'em and Jessica Ball now getting 3 seconds of time pens apiece. And this makes things slightly easier for Gabor Casantos, but he needs to find like 4 seconds in this lap alone, which it's going to be a pretty steep mountain, but maybe one he can climb, but it's going to be pretty tricky because now all the advantage of those fresh inters has certainly rubbed off by now.
And this is my last opportunity for a while to give a little bit of TV time to Owls Esports for a little bit here. Of course, the team very close to my heart is Sheffield Wednesday, so affiliated with the team Owls Esports, as he now heads his way in P17, does HB Cook, to try and close down a gap on Sir with Face for P16 overall in that Williams Mercedes, number 29, looking to make some inroads. Lap 31 of 32 will be starting the final lap of this race now, and well, to be fair, it looked like the strategy was working an absolute treat here. We'll start the final lap of this race, and Trent Newton making this no stop look pretty easy, to be honest with you. There's a lot of doubt about whether these intermediates were going to be working an absolute treat, but I tell you what, the Ferrari man himself just needs to nurse the car home, not put any pressure on the tyres, not put any needless pressure on the tyres, because what's the point if you're going to convert this into a race victory from a no-stop, especially with how quick Gabor Santos has been. It just shows that you just need to just nurse the car home and bring a great result in the end. Gabor Santos 5.8 behind Brad Hold'em at the moment. What's his penalty situation, Brad Hold'em? 3 seconds. So he needs to find another 3 seconds in one lap. Now, will Gabor Santos be able to find that? I'm not so sure. Heading towards Aqua Minerale, though, Trent Newton. Again, a pretty clear cut for these runners here. We have got a little bit of racing happening, by the way, for P5 here. This is Oliver Knott, who's now just received another penalty, battling with the likes of Kart Racer. So, yeah, disappointing stuff from them at the moment as they just continue racing to try and get those final point scoring positions that they can at the moment here. Going back to Trent Newton, though, as he heads his way through to the final reversals. As said, all he needed to do in this race was keep it nice and cool, nice and easy. Didn't have to put any pressure on the tyres, don't put any pressure on the car, and don't put any pressure critically on yourself, because at the end of it, you can convert it into a race victory. Great work from Trent Newton, who takes the victory here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Brad Hold'em finishing in P2 is a great result as well. It'll be a disappointing result, I think, for the McLaren in P3. Gabor Santos thinks he probably had a bit more pace in him than that one, but the strategy not working at all for him. And McLaren continue their streak of 2 podiums in a row. Rob will finish in the end in P4. Kart Racer's doing his best, but Oliver Knott is trying to make it at least a double McLaren top 5. Around the inside, he'll go the final corner. Who's going to come out on top in the end? It looks like it might be Kart Racers to come across the line right now. In the end, finishing in P5 from Oliver Knott, who finishes in 6th, but of course, with the time penalty applied, he falls down to P8 overall. We've got plenty. It was funny that towards the end, wasn't it? Oh, you've got Kitsune finishing then at the end here as he finishes in 9th. You've got the Aston Martin of Newt finishing in 10th. Sune will fall down the standings, of course, with the penalties that need to be applied. So Newt will finish in 9th, Joseph in 10th, Sune in 11th with Raza Gamer in 12th. Brewis will finish in 14th now with Oliver Hornby finishing in 13th. But Emma Clay will jump to P13. Great result from her. We've got HB Cook finishing in 17th, Sir with Face 18th, Jess Ball finishing 18th. We're finishing with Momo in 19th, but what turned out to be a bit more of a slower race in comparison to Belgium. It was all about keeping it cool and easy, and coming out on top, of course, is this man in the end in the Ferrari.
Yeah, very good drive there from Trent Newton. We were questioning the strat, but the question was answered, and it was answered with a very convincing P1 finish here. Once he got ahead he didn't really need to look back, as we do see the Australian driver taking the win here in Imola. Very good race from him indeed. Very good demonstration of tire management as well. So well done to the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, nice work indeed as well. Hopefully we'll get a podium ceremony on this one as well. Gives us an opportunity whilst we're waiting on podium ceremony to kick off as well. Reminder, if you could click that little QR code that you see up there, just scan it on your phone, give us a donation for the Macmillan Cancer Support as well. We've managed to breach £600. We're aiming to get at least 2,000, so feel free to give us a donation by just scanning that QR code and leaving your name, and we'll give you a shout out. That is it for that particular run. Then let's have a look at the final standings of this particular race before we move on to round number 3 of 20 in this 24-hour event. Are we going to get standings, or have we got this glitch? I think we might have got the typical glitch. Yeah, we've got the black screen glitch. Never mind. That's, you know the results. You saw it anyway from that one. So we move on then in the end to our final race. Our final race of the afternoon, rather, breaching into 3 o'clock. Well, there I cleaned it up a little bit. Mexico Grand Prix in about 10 minutes time before we head over to Singapore and then Australia. So, you know what, Patrick, that was a decent race, that one in the end. It was all about strategy and just what you needed to do in order to convert that, I think.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how a lot of races at this circuit go. It's more of a thinker track compared to just raw pace like what we saw in Belgium earlier on this morning. So you really just gotta try to play it based on your strategy, and that strategy was definitely the name of the game here or just today in general with Imola. Very good tire management and a good solid strategy won the day out for Trent Newton.
Yeah, Trent Newton coming out on top in the end then. So, Mexico City Grand Prix coming up in around 10 minutes time. I'm now on break until I come back for round number 5 for Austria. Patrick, you'll be back, of course, for the Austrian Grand Prix at 10 to 7 UK time. But from myself, from Patrick and the rest of the team here, thank you very much for watching. I'll leave you in the very capable hands of Jess and Ollie for the Mexico City Grand Prix. So, take care. See you in a bit.